Serious Reddit, what situation or issue caused you to walk away from a friendship without another word to your friend again? My best mate in high school. Top bloke, shirt off yaback kinda fella. We experienced everything together, all the pre and post pubescent stuff. First fuck around with illegal stuff, drugs, drinks, you name it. At the time both of us were heavily involved in trafficking weed through our respective schools, and due to my size I was a debt collector of sorts for kids who had stiffed the local dealers. Then through an unfortunate series of events, I cleaned myself up and dropped anything that wasn't legal. Doubt though, he was having too much fun doing his thing. We still caught up as often, but this time I was just on the piss, not shooting gear or smoking dope. He would always ask, I would always decline. This pissed Doug off to the point he cut contact with me one day, really abruptly. Didn't feel the need to pursue a reason. Fast forward about 10 years, Ma rings me, tells me that Doug had rocked up at my folks asking to catch up and bury the hatchet as he was clean, so she gave him my address, and he was coming over. The missus didn't know about Doug and was fast asleep anyway, so I just left the door open a crack so I could hear his car pull up. Had a real bad feel in it though, to the point where I grabbed the pacifier. A length of thick regime I'd fashioned into a cudgel from my high school woodwork days that I usually keep near the door, and slid it hidden from sight near the couch. Still don't know why. Moments later, hear a car pull up. I go outside to meet him, and could immediately tell something was up. Firstly, Doug was faking flying, pupils like 5-cent pieces. So much for being clean. Second, instead of his crappy Holden we used to bomb around Broadien, he was driving some old Volvo. Now I know his family was the same as mine, pretty much boggin, welfare, and he had Holden lovers, so it struck as odd as hell. We used to nick a few cars for insurance jobs back in the day too. Damn, I haven't thought about that in years. Anyway, after an awkward handshake, I motion him around the back to the shed, basically my man cave. Hit the lights, grab a beer and toss one over to him. Fuck me, he had a rough time. Thin as a whip now, couple of dodgy neck and facial tats. He was pretty fidgety, I guess from the gear he was obviously on. He was rambling about his stint inside, not surprising. How his family had all moved back up north, and how he was clean now. I stopped him there, and called him out. Basically said bullshit, can't remember exactly what I said. He insisted it was from cold medicine or something. PFFT. The whole time he was looking around the shed, but only at certain things. Expensive things. Power tools. Gym kit. My gun safe in particular. I didn't like where this was going, so told him we can catch up later on the week or something. I gotta go to bed. He was cool with that, smiled, patted me on the back, and jumped back in his car after I walked him out. I stick me head into say see ya, checked the ignition. Of course there was no key. Couple of days later, I note the gun safe had pry marks on the paint. Now this faker is locked up good solid steel, anchored to the concrete. It ain't opening unless I open it. Aussie law is pretty hardcore with that shit. Call up the cops, tell them what's happened. They come around and have a squiz. I'll let them know I'm pretty sure I know who tried to open it. Gave them Doug's full name, left it at that. Haven't heard from the bloke in near 15 years. Frankly don't care if I do. Our daughters went to preschool together, and so we started socializing, with play dates twice or 3 times a week for about a year. The kids would play, and we would drink coffee and chat. When I had to take my husband for surgery, she offered to watch my kid. It was the very first time she'd ever watched her without me there. I came back a few hours later to find my 3-year-old sitting in a corner looking as if she'd been crying. The ex-friend launched into this really detailed story about how my daughter had repeatedly tried to take a toy from her daughter, and so she'd had to give her a timeout, and my daughter was upset at the discipline. Got my kid in the car and asked what had happened. She said that she and her friend had argued over a toy. Ex-friend had gotten right into her face and screamed at her so close that she had sprayed my daughter's face with spittle. Then ex-friend slapped her and slammed her into the wall. I pulled over and felt the back of my kid's head. There was a big lump on it. So we turned around and drove straight to the police station. The police interviewed me and my daughter. I later found out that they sent officers to interview ex-friend, and on the strength of their observations, Child Protective Services was brought in. She'd been beating her daughters fairly regularly with a belt. There were lots of injuries in various stages of healing, including a broken rib. Ex-friend got a suspended sentence and lost custody of her 2 children to her mother-in-law until she worked through an anger management and parenting program. I don't know if she ever completed it. Here's the worst part. I spent 2 or 3 hours a week with that woman for a year, and I had no clue she abused her children. None. Nothing she said ever raised red flags. I never saw her threaten or physically discipline her kids in public. Her daughters were very quiet and well behaved, maybe a little too eager to please adults, but nothing really remarkable. She never left marks in visible places. I thought that I loved her. We had been friends with benefits for 2 years. She initiated the kissing, and I had taken her home. As she got out of the car that I drove her 40 miles just to get home in, I ran out to give her a goodbye hug, which she graciously accepted. Then she proceeded to tell our mutual best friend that I came at her. She was genuinely scared, and she didn't know if she should press charges or not. Quote, I thought he was going to rap me. End quote. I wish that was the actual end, but there was one more time that she called. A couple weeks later, she told me she was stranded far away from her apartment and she needed some help. While I was furious that she had done this shit to me, I decided to help. My friends and I picked her up. I didn't talk to her at all. And then, my real best friend suggested, hey, why don't we get something to eat first? Because he didn't know what had happened between the chick and I. Everyone loved the idea except me. We went to a restaurant and I literally pretended to have an important phone call and walked around the neighborhood, too sick to my stomach to be near the table, until my best friend called me and said we should get going. We dropped the chick off, but before we did, she said, hey, I just wanna be honest with you, and she then told me that the reason she was stranded was because she had went to a person's house to have sex with them, and she needed a ride home. I told the driving friend, let's get out of here. I never spoke to her again, even though she tried to text and Facebook me many times. Witnessed a gambling addiction swallow my friend's life up whole. Kid started innocently enough at 17. Got a fake and went to one of those casinos that really couldn't give a fuck what age you actually were, as long as you don't win. He lost every penny he had to his name up until that point. Had his fake taken from him that night too when he got pulled over on his way home. He then swiped his brother's debit card one day and ran him dry on an online casino. His parents banned his IP from the internet to prevent this in the future. So in turn he goes out, tells me he needs $100 for an emergency, and goes out and buys a shitty laptop with it. He then swipes his mom's credit card and runs a $4K tab on that again on an online casino. Fast forward about a year now, I got over the whole laptop thing since I was working and didn't really care too much about $100. He tells me and a bunch of other people he's doing a fake ID order. We're all about to go to college, so it made sense to get in on this. Give him the money, take the photos, everything seems smooth. Wrong. The kid takes the money, about $1.5K of his friend's money, buys himself a fake, then goes to the casino and loses it all. After this I basically told him to go fuck himself, but got begged by both mine and his parents to stay in touch because he needed support now more than ever. That same summer before college, kid decides he wants to make another casino run. Asks me to chill one day. Long story short, kid had the balls to ask me if I wanted to rob a faking house with him. I got in a fight with the kid, and from what I understand he actually still did it. Didn't get caught either. Worst part about it is, from what I understand, he robbed his grandparents since he knew where they kept their valuables. I don't talk to this kid anymore, but from what I understand he later took his tuition money for college or something along those lines and basically gambled all of it. All I know now is that he's a college dropout and works at Burger King. The part that keeps me up at night is that part of me thinks I could've done more. Like, I could've just taken his keys so couldn't go to the casino. Or I could've told his parents, who are extremely good people, when and where he was heading when I knew. I don't even know what to think of the kid anymore, because he truly was a great friend at first, but something just clicked one day and the kid just couldn't stop gambling. I really thought he had hope when he went to college, as his first 2 years he really did well, but his junior year, last year, something went awfully wrong and it all fell apart. I changed some of the info here because I didn't have the heart to completely put someone's life out there for faking karma, but I hope someone out there reads this and maybe it helps them keep someone you thought would be your best friend forever when you were a kid. Had a big crush on a girl since high school. We ended up getting closer and I fell for her hard. She was never interested in me because we were better as friends, which is bullshit. Every so often I would try to move on from her, but when I did she'd say some bullshit, like I'm starting to like you, or I don't know what will happen in the future, when I would ask her if we'd end up together. Some ridiculous nonsense, but I was stupid enough to believe it and go back to her. She had different boyfriends throughout that time, and every time she did, I ceased to exist. Only when things between them got rough, she would come to me. So I figured it was for attention. I always wondered why she kept picking the biggest douchebags and going back to them again and again, just to be hurt again and again, but then it occurred to me that I was doing the same thing with her. Every time she broke my heart, like an idiot, I gathered the pieces and put them right back in her hand. So a few days ago I sent her a message basically saying she'll no longer be part of my life. We're done, don't contact me or anything. It's been a tough few days. My entire high school memory was all her. I went to my brother's wedding with her, for Christ's sake. I can't even look at another girl without thinking of her. But no, as soon as I realized that, I was done. Not worth dealing with anymore. In 1997, when I was 12, I got into using chat rooms online with other people from across the world. I'm Aussie, and back then I thought it was the coolest thing ever. In 1999, while on Ike, I started to speak to a guy called Chris. He was a year older than me, he lived in the Los Angeles area, and he was so cool at the time. He was in a band, had piercings, was a rocker, skateboarded etc., and we would talk for hours every day. I'd get home from school to tell him about my day, and it'd be the evening for him too, but the day before. Hell, I'd even say that he shaped my teen years, as he inspired my music taste in TV shows, and gave me a lot of advice. I wouldn't say we dated, but I'd have considered him my best friend. Sometime in 2000, he told me that he would be coming on vacation to Australia in January 2001, and as you could have imagined, I was over the moon. My city is a popular tourist destination a few hours away from Sydney, where he was staying for a couple of weeks, so over many months we planned what we would do, where we would go, and everything. The time came. We didn't speak much over the course of a few days, with him being on vacation and all that, but we planned the day we would meet, and how I was to be picked up by the car his parents had rented on their vacation. The day was here, and I was so excited. I got ready in the morning, and waited for the day to be picked up by him and his parents. Day turned into night, but I stayed there, hoping that he'd simply been delayed. The following day, I waited again. I'd sent email after email to him, MSN message after message, but he didn't respond to me. Chris never came. The following morning after that, I called the home number he gave me a while ago, and I had written down. I never called him because that's when call costs overseas were sky high, to try and see if there was anyone at his house who could give me any info on their whereabouts, cause I was worried. He answered the phone. After me going crazy on him, me crying, him beating around the bush, what I basically found out was that I had been had. It all seemed to be some sort of sick joke, and he had never even left the US. The vacation, the plans we made, was all a lie. I never knew why he did it either, and to this day, I still don't. But after that point, I decided that we maybe shouldn't talk anymore. But 14 years down the line, I do occasionally wonder what he's up to, or if he'll ever read this. TLDR, I was severely trolled by an American who wanted to meet up with me, but happened to be 8,000 miles from me instead. I was living as a roommate in my friend's apartment. First he wanted to make a deal with me. His idea was that I should apply for a place in an elite student dormitory because I had a decent chance to get it, but not move in. remain in his apartment as a tenant, pay him rent, and he would use my room and the dormitory as an office for his startup company and give me a 6-pack of beer for this. I told him that first operating a company in a student dormitory will surely attract some unwanted attention, especially because 3 students were living in each and the other 2 students would be a bit upset when a company started working in their room. Second, it would be the business of the century to have a free room where I do not live and rent another room from him just for sheets and giggles. I asked him if he thought that from then on I will live in his flat for free. He reassured me that he thought that we are so good friends that he thought that I will pay him rent continuously but give him my dormitory room for free to use. After I said him to go fuck himself, his next idea was to evict me from his flat, but did not tell me in advance because he was afraid that I will beat him up. We were friends for 10 years at that point and I never hurt or threatened him in any way during this decade. After this I told him to go fuck himself and have not spoken to him in a decade. Story time. So this guy, we'll call him Zed for now, was a good friend freshman year of college. We had our friend group and everything was awesome. Then sophomore year rolled around and he went to Vietnam for a semester. After he came back he was much more of an asshole. We all kind of had a falling out, but we had already signed a lease, so me and 2 other friends would be living with him junior year. He was the worst roommate you could ask for in an apartment setting. Zed always left the windows up, even when it became cold, and that always let bugs get into the apartment. I even showed him one time how one could get in, even though we had a screen, yet still left them open. I could go on, but I'll get to the point. What made me absolutely hate him and not say another word other than hey was one night after he went out to meet his little for the first time at his business fraternity. So he gets back at 3 AM pissed drunk to the point where he didn't know what planet he was on. I had an early class along with my other roommates, so we were all asleep but were woken up by him making so much noise. Now I always lock my door, but I guess I forgot that night, and I wake up at 3:30 AM to an unrecognizable silhouette at the foot of my bed. As I got a clearer look I had no idea who he was, immediately yelled at him to get foe, and shoved him out. I immediately locked the door, and could not get back to sleep. I texted my other roommates to see what was happening but no one wanted to go out and deal with it. So morning comes around, and the apartment is trashed. There's vomit everywhere, a burned pizza sitting in the oven, and one of the bathrooms completely unusable. It turns out, he brought home a friend who was also blacked out, who was also the person in my room. Zed's friend then went into our bathroom, turned on the sink and left, nearly flooding the place. I guess they got hungry and put a pizza in the oven, but fell asleep before taking it out. Thankfully another roomie went out and took the pizza out before the apartment burned down. So Zed was nowhere to be found that morning and everyone was pissed at him. So we text him and leave him a note saying clean this shit up as soon as possible. We all get back from class and the apartment is still a mess and we see the results of the most half-assed cleanup. Zed had left for a camping trip that weekend and left a majority of the mess because his friend made most of it. He never even apologized for that night. So, the other roommates and I had to clean up the rest because we aren't animals and enjoy a clean apartment. To this day I hate him and have never said a word. TLDR, former friend gets completely wasted and brings home an equally drunk friend. They proceed to nearly flood the apartment, left a pizza in the oven, vomited everywhere, and did a half-assed cleanup before leaving for the weekend. My best friend and I once had this huge fight. It started like this. Back in high school she had this boyfriend that her brother hooked her up with. At first it seemed good I suppose, but as time went on things began to change. Every few months she come on the bus crying about something horrid that he did. Of course sorry were given, and then they were good again, but soon it became every month, then every week and eventually every day. His transgressions also become worse as the time went by. He felt as if he could treat her like a toy and play with her when he wanted, then cast her aside when he didn't. Me and her other friend were very peeved. We had formulated a plan. I normally would have refused, but I felt the situation was dire. That being said, I was still guilty, no question. The plan: steal the boyfriend's number without her knowledge. Very easy. Then the other friend would pose a single chick and chat him up. The boyfriend said that he was single and was hot for the new chick. So we used this as proof to show her what an asshole he is and that she deserved better. She found out I stole the number and she was pissed. I didn't fight her on it. She was right. We never spoke for a whole year. I didn't even think of her as I was pretty sure it was over. But according to all her other friends, she still always spoke about missing me and forgiving me. She came back and said, and I quote, "Hey, and Vegeto too, I miss you. And I was an idiot. I would like to see you again." She is one of those people for who calling themselves an idiot is a really big deal. We're best friends again now. We were good friends from elementary school through high school. He wanted it to be something else when I went off to college. I thought I might too, but the first time we got close, we never kissed or even embraced. I'm not much of a hugger. I had the unwelcome sensation that I was getting flirted with by my brother. I immediately let him know because the feeling was so strong and certain that I knew we would never be anything other than friends. Please, no friend zone claims. I had plenty of flings and romantic relationships with people I was just friends with first. He seemed to not believe me at first and actually tried to slide his hand under my as while we were watching a movie with my roommate next to us in a publicly accessible lounge after I had told him we would be remaining friends. But after I scooted away time and time again and finally left the room, he seemed to take me seriously and not be too upset by it. Fast forward 8 months. I'm home from college for the winter and he wants to meet up with a mutual guy friend of ours. We go to a local haunt that is open until the wee hours and talk. Our mutual friend is very chill. We'll talk about anything, and for some reason we talk about going to a strip club together because I'm curious and have never been. We include my just friend's friend in this conversation. When I get home that night, he emails me the most sexist, slut-shaming diatribe commenting that I was flirting with our friend, so was not, and our friend agreed with me, accusing me of dressing too revealingly. I was wearing a two-layer cotton t-shirt showing curve, but no cleavage, not that it matters, and a heavy suede coat with fluffy forks fur collar. And starts digging on me for my potential relationship with an older guy. I was 18, and my friend had been hanging out with people much older than he, and didn't seem to see the double standard. The emails volleyed back and forth, me, calm, reserved, but calling him on his bull. He spiraling deeper and deeper into women-hating red pill language. That was a complete shock, as he had always spoken to me as an equal before, even though he had a lot more book smarts than I. And finally he crossed 3 lines that shattered our friendship. I had once told him my dreams, confided in him my thoughts about science and the nature of life and the universe, and here he was telling me he thought I was a slutty piece of shit who was too stupid to make her own decisions. It really hurt. It still hurts to think about. I never spoke to him again. Our history had been wronged and severed, and I would not be able to look at him the same way again, or feel emotionally safe in his presence. Every now and again he writes me, or tries to friend me on Facebook, but it still hurts, ruined some of my faith in friendship. If I thought it would be healthy for either of us to rekindle that friendship, I would, but I still get a sensation like bile in my mouth whenever I think about it. This one's about my sister. I'm using her because before shit happened, I saw us more as friends than her being my sister. Basically, I don't know when it happened, but I had realized something about her. She's an awful person. She would always talk shit about my appearance, like my acne on my chest and back and face. Constantly she would come to me about the other girls in her school and be like, "God, this girl is so nasty, like she has freckles all over her body and shit, like I can't believe she's popular." My sister is 17, and I'm 19 just for context. She judges everyone by their appearance, and she is absolutely dumbfounded as to why people are more popular than her when she doesn't talk to anyone or interact with anyone. She wants the world to change for her, which is not only lazy, but selfish, because then people like me have to put up with her bullshit. Like one time I had to pick her up from swim practice, and there is construction on the main road outside my neighborhood, so I was waiting for like 15 minutes in traffic. When I got there, she immediately got shitty at me for not picking her up sooner, because she doesn't want to be the last person left. She started talking shit about my acne and just saying some awful shit for no reason, because she thinks the world revolves around her. And just recently, I discovered she has the guiltiest conscience of anyone I've ever known in my life. She had been getting on my nerves, because I just started college not too long ago, and was getting swamped in work, and she will just come in my room while I'm doing work and close my laptop and mess with all my papers and sit on my bed to watch me and make weird noises, and I'm like, can you get out? And she says no, in a cheeky prissy voice. I was fed up with her one time, so when she was talking shit about my acne at dinner when we were having pizza, so I snapped on her and said some things I probably shouldn't have, but don't regret saying. We haven't talked in 3 months, and in those 3 months she has convinced herself she's a victim of some heinous act I did. She talks shit about me to my other brothers and my mom, obviously telling a one-sided story where I'm the villain who bullied poor innocent Ashley. She completely avoids me now, and if I try to ask her what's for dinner, she gives an angrily sounding brief response. The funny thing is we live together with my parents, and I haven't been happier in these 3 months. I feel better about my appearance and everything, because not hearing criticism on my skin, something I can't control, has helped me gain a lot of self-confidence. One time, I gave my friend a ride home, and she invited me to come into their house and hang out for a while. She warned me that she's not in good terms with her stepmom, and her stepmom is home as well. She told me to just go in the house with her without saying anything to her stepmom at all. Now, this would be being disrespectful in my part, because I always greet the house owners out of courtesy. I came in and gave a faint hi and waved to her stepmom before my friend ushered me directly to her room. 5 minutes later, her stepmom came into the room and pointed at me to step outside. At first I thought the stepmom was referring to my friend, but my friend corrected me and said that her stepmom meant me, and she led me to go out her bedroom. She was about to close her bedroom door and let me face her stepmom alone downstairs, screaming and yelling and cussing at me like she just caught a house thief. I even had to beg my friend to come downstairs with me for hock nows what her 200-pound stepmom could do to me. Not to mention her stepmom did this in front of little kids. I uttered a few apology while her mouth didn't stop yelling at me, and I left the house quick. When I got home, I waited for my friend to text me, hoping she got concerned on what happened to me. This turned to days, and she never did. I didn't mention to her how this upsets me, but this was my tipping point on deciding that I'm not hanging out with her ever again. My family and other friends were all pointing out on why I was still hanging out prior to the situation with this friend, while they point out things she does that I ignore and probably got immune. Throwaway account. Names changed to protect identities. So I was really good friends with this dude named Tim. Tim and I went to high school, joined the military, and were stationed at our first base together. Tim and I were pretty inseparable, and were rarely seen without each other among our friends. Enter the girl. Her name was Jennifer. A solid the 8th of May 10 on a no makeup day. 00 waist and 34C bust. I had dated Jennifer for a while before, in high school, and also shortly after. Jennifer and I got engaged in the late 200Xs, and married shortly after. Tim, Jennifer, and I basically were the three musketeers. Tim had his own share of luck with women. Even more courage and suave than I could ever muster. One day, we all went out to play paintball at the local field. Pretty awesome day, overall. Until we got home. I decided to clean up first. Shower and change, all that jazz. I head upstairs to the restroom, and hear my newlywed wife and my best bud turn on Dragon Ball Z, so I decide to hurry up with the shower, so I could watch too. But then I had a thought. Wouldn't it be hilarious if I surprised them with a spontaneous water gun fight? I sneak out of the shower and fill up my super soaker to make my way downstairs, shower still running to make it seem like I'm still in there. I prime the super soaker and turn the corner to see an event that will never leave my mind. There lay my bud, balls deep in my wife. Like what the fuck? A million things go through my mind. My bud betrayed me, which hurt me, than what Jennifer could ever do. Fucking hoes ain't loyal. I decide the best thing to do is remain calm and remove myself from the situation before I could do anything harmful to either of them. What the fuck are you doing? I managed to say without breaking down into tears. Deer in the headlights. Get the fuck out of my house. Another false moment of courage. I'm dying inside. I call our supervisor who promptly comes to pick up Tim. I request a transfer of units and luckily got it. I divorced Jennifer shortly thereafter and didn't have to worry about a thing since there was evidence of adultery. Since Tim was picked up by the supervisor, we had to file a memorandum for record. That memorandum went on to support booting Tim out of the military under Article 83 and 134 in the Uniform Code of Military Justice. Those two ruined many things in my life, perhaps the most important of which is the Dragon Ball series. I cannot watch it anymore without crying incoherently. At least Tim helped me get out of a relationship that could have been really bad. Still haven't talked to that faker, pun intended, in more than 10 years. He was a pretty shitty friend in general. A huge nerd with a mild form of Asperger's syndrome. He was also a extremely spoiled gaming addict. Literally, gaming was the only thing he did. Would never let you play the game for more than 5 minutes and often wouldn't even talk back to you if he was focused. One day he had a mutual friend sleeping over, so I decided to drop by. He was being kind of a dick already, talking to me from the balcony, but not letting me in for a while, but he eventually let me in. After a while I went to the balcony, probably to get some fresh air, and out of nothing he locked the door. Since I was trapped on a 2 stories up balcony, I got kinda mad and urged him to open the door, but he just kept laughing at me. I got so mad I started fumbling with the door handle. You have to know that I was a pretty fat kid back then, so when I hung with all my weight on the handle, it naturally broke off. My friend gets mad and opens the door to shout at me, demanding that I would pay for the damage. I just walked out and never talked to him again. One day a sense of nostalgia came over me and I contacted him. It had been 1 year or so and I thought it would be fun to meet up. However, the same afternoon I thought of what an awful friend he'd always been, so I didn't show up and haven't talked to me ever since. She took it personally that I chose not to have kids when she can't have them. I made my choice long before she found out she couldn't carry a pregnancy to term, and my choice was in no way influenced by her when I did make it. She had known for years that I wasn't going to have them, and until she found out that she couldn't, she had no problem with it. I was sad for her, cried with her, and was there for her and her husband when they found out she couldn't carry a pregnancy to term. I never rubbed it in their face, never even brought up being child free or suggested adoption to them because I knew it would wound them. The fact I didn't change my mind was a slap in the face to every couple struggling with infertility, according to her. She also ignored the fact that pregnancy would be incredibly dangerous for me. Due to a pre-existing condition, there is an 80% chance that the fetus and I would die before the end of the first trimester. That reason wasn't good enough for her, because at least I had a 20% chance of becoming a mother, while she had 0. She would insult me every time we talked, calling me selfish, saying I wasn't a real woman, and saying I needed psychological help because I didn't want to reach the pinnacle of womanhood by becoming a mother. The last time we talked, I told her I can't speak to her anymore because of these insults. Her last words to me were, "I hope you get pregnant, find out too late to murder your innocent child, then die in childbirth." 27 years of friendship gone because she can't stop grieving for a child that will never exist. I had a friendship with a girl that turned romantic. She had her own issues and eventually just left me be. I was far more into her than she was into me. We managed to become friends again after a while, and I had a girlfriend at that stage. Now what happens is that she's moving to my city. Awesome, and I decide to let her stay with us for a while. There were clashes between her and my girlfriend, and this third woman who was a friend of mine from way back called and said she needed somewhere to stay. The third woman exacerbates the situation and eventually gets busted stealing from us. After a long saga of making shit up, fake phone calls to herself and other drama, and some gaslighting, and we eventually kick her out. My mate sides with that girl, and I had to choose between these guys and my girlfriend. I chose my girlfriend. Now I'm not perfect, and I went through this review stage and found that there were points where I could have acted better, so a couple of years later I message her and tell her as such. We catch up again, and she tells me throughout this conversation that we couldn't ever really be really good friends again because All of her friends knew what happened and that at most, we could catch up for a coffee once in a while, and that she was still very good friends with the woman who'd stolen from me. I agreed at the time, but on the walk home I realized that I'd put myself out, I'd apologized, and I'd literally gotten nothing back, except rules and stipulations on how our interactions would work in the future. So, I didn't look back. I was pretty sad about it, because at one time she was my closest friend, and I thought she might have changed or seen through the other woman's lies. But I'd made peace with myself, I'd admitted my errors to them, and ultimately, if after all that they didn't see their own, well, that sucks for them. I'm able to grow as a person. I'm happy about that. Currently dealing with this. I haven't completely cut off contact, but I'm sure it's coming. I have 2 friends that are roommates. They have been roommates off and on for years, and usually get along great. The difference now is that one of them is now engaged, and his fiancée lives with them. So friend 1 is really happy with this girl, and friend number 2 was cool with it, until he found out they are getting their own place after they're married. He has child support, and a major weed addiction. He's been paying like $200 a month for rent, and that's it. 4 years. The rent is $800. He doesn't pay any utilities, he doesn't pay for gas for rides to work. He doesn't help around the house. He just works, plays games and smokes weed. He spends half of what he makes in a month on weed. He is throwing a fit about them getting their own place and playing the victim, saying he can't afford his own place and that they are just faking up his life. He constantly complains about being broke and blames the child support for it instead of the hundreds of dollars he spends on weed every week. He's 32 faking years old. He's threatening to fuck up their wedding and has been trying to break them up. Luckily, friend 1 and his fiancée are too smart for this shit and it's not working. My group of friends is close. We introduce each other as brothers and will do anything for one another. But this playing the victim bullshit is getting old, and we are all pretty sick of it at this point. If anything happens to fuck up friend 1's wedding, friend 2 is going to have a rude awakening when he suddenly has no brothers, no friends, and no one to lean on anymore. Edit. Also, if friend number 2 happens to see this, you're acting like a faking spoiled child. It's your fault that you are going nowhere in life, no one else's. Get your shit together, brother. Seriously. You are pushing everyone away by being selfish and using people. Grow the fuck up. This also applies to anyone else doing this. Get your head right. Throw away, because I feel extremely ashamed of how long I stood by this person. I had a couple friends who used to date. I'll call them Sarah and James. They broke up over a year ago, but had been trying to remain friends. Sarah would still publicly profess her love for James, but she would also frequently drag his name through the mud for any little thing he did that made her unhappy. I really should have paid attention sooner to Sarah's behavior instead of overlooking it. I have my own baggage, and so she was one of the only 3 people who I wasn't afraid secretly hated me. However, that's really not an excuse for willful ignorance. Anyways, a couple months ago, I started noticing how anxious James got anytime Sarah seemed even a bit annoyed. He's a normally pretty confident and chill person. However, if Sarah made a passive-aggressive jab at him, the color would drain from his face, and he'd become visibly shaken. It was really clear that he was trying to unsuccessfully hide it. When I got the chance, I asked him if there was anything I could do to help. A few days later, he opened up to me and another friend about his past relationship with Sarah. In private, she would frequently blow up and berate him for any and every little thing he did wrong, and on occasion, she would slap him during these episodes. I feel like such a shitty person for this, but even though I believed James and I recognized that Sarah had been abusive, I didn't immediately write her out of my life. Instead, I kept her as a distant friend until a couple weeks ago. More than a year after the end of that relationship, James got up the courage to go on a date with a new girl. Sarah found out and went nuclear. She cornered James, screamed at him, splashed coffee on him, and then cut her wrist, not deep enough to really bleed. After I found out what happened, I tried encouraging her to see a counselor, but she's completely opposed to any kind of professional help. I haven't talked to her since then, but I hate myself for taking so long to cut things off. I know she has her own mental problems, but that doesn't excuse her actions. I hope that I can one day redeem myself for enabling an abuser. I started to realize that his friends didn't like me when one of them sent a FB message which insulted me and my friend. His friend sent him an apology, but I didn't get one. So I unfriended both my friend and his friend who sent us the insulting message. I did that because I noticed that none of my friend's friends actually liked me and kind of put up with me. They had all been friends in university or came from the same hometown. I also realized me and my friend were kind of toxic with each other, as in we allowed each other to wallow in depression, drank and smoked extensively, and basically allowed each other to stop growing as people. There was a gap of 3 months during our friendship where we didn't really see each other due to both of us being busy. During that time he got a job, he got over his ex and was dating a really nice girl, and he cut down on his drinking. Then a few months later his friend sends the insulting FB message to us, and I realized he, my friend, was better off without me. My friend did nothing wrong really. I just felt that seeing as his friends didn't like me and how I held back his progress, it was better I faded away. So when he called and texts, I ignored him and I deleted my FB. I made the right choice, but I probably did it the wrong way. He was a good person, but we were bad for each other. This needs a short introduction. It's sad but true, but the Dutch tend to curse with diseases. 10 years ago, my mum had cancer, and I was going through a rough period. I didn't have many friends. One afternoon I was invited by my then best friend to come over and hang around for that day together. I was happy I actually got invited. I entered her house and I soon see someone else on the couch next to her. Yeah, she came by, so I invited her too. No problem, I guess we can sit with the three of us. Within 5 minutes, I'm the odd one out, the fifth wheel on the wagon, the third leg, whatever you call it in English. I didn't feel at ease anymore, so I turned very quiet. As my thoughts start taking me on the thoughts train to that sharp image of my mum in a hospital bed, my friend and the other girl had started complaining about something. In doing this, they started cursing with the disease cancer. I asked them if they could stop that, after which I got insulted using the same disease in their sentences. I got up and left the house, slammed every door I ran into, ignored their laughter that soon turned into some sort of half pity, half giggling. My friend followed me to her front door, but never pushed through to get me back inside. I never spoke to her again. I never got an apology. She just kept inviting me over, and I ignored every single invite. It stopped after a year. I still don't talk to her. I've never been so angry in my life. Something snapped and she's the only person I've ever been so mad at. Her life was spiraling out of control, and she had no desire to fix things, and kept blaming everyone else for her problems. I invited her to live with me rent-free, so she could try and get her finances under control and get back on her feet. Her family had had it with her, so none of them would take her in, and she had no other friends. She treated it like a vacation, and continued to recklessly spend money on weed and clothes and eating out. She acted totally ungrateful for me letting her live there, never helped with chores or cooking, and kept her room a pigsty, and when I asked her to leave after 8 months she was shocked and upset. She assumed I was letting her live there indefinitely. She was very mentally unstable. The amount of weed she smoked didn't help either, and whenever I told her to consider therapy she would get angry. I have my own issues with anxiety and depression, and being around her was making things worse for me. Whenever I was home she wouldn't leave me alone for a second. Every day I'd have to sit there and listen to her go on and on about her problems. I felt terribly guilty about cutting her off after she moved out, but I needed to for my own mental well-being. We haven't spoken in 3 years, and honestly my life has gotten nothing but better since I got rid of her. To cut a long story short, there was an amazing teacher at my high school who put on reenactments directed by students. I was friends with 3 girls in high school, very clique. We would write noted to each other in class, hang out every weekend, etc. Senior year 3 of us had been asked to be the head director of different reenactment, the 4th friend had not. My reenactment was the first of the year and I always loved the most, because it was the biggest surprise to the freshman history classes, since it was all upperclassmen as actors. Fourth friend took it hard that she wasn't asked to direct and ended up lying to my other friends that she has actually been asked to direct and I was stealing her role. She at this time was also struggling with an eating disorder. I know this sounds heartless, but she was absolutely this type of person. She used that in her favor to play the victim. None of my friends believed me, and I lost my other two best friends that year, which really faked me up. 2 years later she wanted to be friends again. I confronted her about the lie, and she said something along the lines of, well, we can't go back in time and see who said what, so what does it matter? If she had just owned up and apologized, I would have been able to move on. But I told her she hasn't changed, and there's no chance we will ever be friends again. After getting illegally evicted from my place, landlord was a real winner, and having 5 days to find a place to live, my best friend of almost 7 to 8 years decided to try hook up with my then barely ex-girlfriend of over 2 years. He and I did most of the usual fun shit growing up, and never in a million years would I have seen that coming. I found out when I called him to see if he knew where I could find any weed so I could calm down. He told me he wasn't in town. We hung up, but this weird little tick went off inside my head, and I called him back. Turns out he was on his way to where she was working for the summer to hook up. Apparently he slept on the couch, he still faking went, and then came home the next day. We tried to patch shit up, but I was fairly certain they had already fooled around when I was still living with her, so he can't be trusted again. She explicitly told me one day that she didn't even want him around. It creeped her out. Then that happens. When questioned about that, she has no memory of telling me those things, lol. In the end, I broke my phone, lost my mind, lost my job, my best friend, all my other friends, after she ran her mouth for things that never even happened. And despite everything, I lost her as a friend as well. It was a lose-lose for everybody, but I'm probably the only one who developed some mental issues because of it. TLDR, broke up with girlfriend, kicked out of house, lost job because of it, called best friend to see if he could help calm me down, and he was heading to bang my ex. Teeth chipped after, major mental instability, lack of trust forever. They blew off my 30th birthday party. It was at a combination scatter shop / arcade. All they had to do was come in and play arcade games with me for like 15 minutes and eat a slice of cake. Total cost, maybe $3 in games. It could hardly have been a cheaper birthday party. The kicker is, one of my now ex-friends had his birthday the day before mine. I made a point to drop by his party after work, sing happy birthday and give hugs, even though I couldn't stay and eat at the expensive restaurant where he had his party. He and his girlfriend, both people I considered fine friends, were hale and hearty that night. It's not like one of them had a leg pop off and they had to roll to the emergency clinic or something. I saw them the day before my birthday. My other friend blew me off via text 20 minutes before she was supposed to arrive. She didn't want to go out. When she was in the army, I was the only one who sent her letters and called her from home. She couldn't put in some FaceTime for a few minutes. Are you fucking kidding me? We live in the same city and beach. I know you ain't have any other friends or anything better to do. A couple of these people wrote me messages on Facebook. Oh, I'm so sorry I couldn't make it. Fuck you. I deleted them, their phone numbers, and moved on. I was always the person who came to everyone's and their brother's graduation, birthday, comedy show, etc. I helped them pack and move. And they couldn't come to see me on my birthday? Absolute best college friend. Did everything together. We both moved to the same city for grad school, and I got really wrapped up in work plus exercising, and she got really wrapped up in work plus going out and being social. I was still down to hang out, but usually wanted to be back home by like 10:30 p.m. Eventually, this really annoyed her, and she also refused to hang with me, for whatever reason. This really annoyed me, and so we started only hanging out rarely. One day, years later, after months of not seeing each other, and 10 years of friendship, and at an extreme low point in my life, I went to hang out with her. A few hours in, we started a mini argument, and she went off on me about how I ruined conversations, and couldn't shoot the shit about anything without turning it into a serious conversation. She's not completely wrong, but I've been that way, since I was a kid and was not interested in hearing about my faults, given everything else I was dealing with. After she finished berating me, I stood up, asked if she was finished, said okay bye, then proceeded to walk to my car and drive away. She just kind of sat there stunned, and we've never spoken since. I've since moved to a new city. Thinking back on those last years of being in the same city, not making serious efforts to maintain our friendship, and wondering whether things could have turned out differently will haunt me for the rest of my life. When I was in 5th grade I made the best friend I've ever had. We were practically connected at the hip for nearly a year. We had so much in common, and I had never cared about someone who wasn't related to me by blood as much as I cared about her. Then, my entire family discovered that we were infested with lice. I had gotten them from her, and they spread to my entire family, and we could not for the life of us get rid of them. My friend was from a really big family with about 8 children and a dad who worked far too much to see to his children and, say, check them for lice. My family tried every possible way to get rid of the lice, everything from poisons to lye soap to olive oil, and nothing helped even a bit. It was for this reason that I slowly started avoiding my friend more and more, and the further away from her I got, the less terrible the lice blight on my family was. We moved away eventually anyway, but after we did, I didn't make any attempt to keep in touch with my friend. I loved her, and I still look back on our friendship with fondness, but all good things must come to an end. Especially if those good things are spreading parasites to you and your entire family. A friend tried to get me in on a plot to get a guy so drunk that he would pass out. Then I would have to kiss him with that being photographed to prove that the guy was gay or something. I was supposed to do this for $5. Here is how it goes. I had this friend who has a beachy fat girlfriend. That is not really important to the story, but I hate her so fuck her. And one day I ask to hang out and play video games. He agrees and a few minutes later I show up to his apartment. Anyway, we shoot the sheet for like 5 minutes, and then his roommate comes down the stairs. The roommate says hey my name is D. I say hello my name is effort_to_decent. Then his eyes light up, like he was expecting a present or something. Is this the guy? D asks my friend. My friend confirms, and instantly starts laughing, and so is his anchor of a girlfriend. I, not knowing what was going on, asked about the situation. D says he has an offer for me, and recites the first paragraph of this comment. I instantly start laughing. I mean that is the dumbest thing ever, right? The guy's trying to get me to pretty much sexually assault someone for $5. The man is a moron. Now surely my friend knew this and was just taking advantage of a funny situation. There is no way he would realistically expect me to do this. Well, obviously I decline and called D an idiot in a joke-y manner, and then my friend asked why. I said because that is a crime, and let alone the fact I'm not gay. Then I asked him why he thought I would actually do that. He just gave a blank stare. I persisted and he just said I thought you do things or whatever, something to that effect. I asked for examples of this, and he again met me with a blank stare. Then I realized that it wasn't a joke anymore. The dude actually expected me to follow through with this, frankly, retarded plan. It was a very eye-opening moment, because it meant that I was apparently this guy's go-to quasi-rapist, and he could even do me the courtesy of justifying why. He just wanted something to play out, and thought I was dumb enough to follow through with it. Suffice it to say I have not spoken to him since. Edit. I have another one that is different but quasi-pertinent, if anyone wants to hear it. I'm currently in this situation and struggling to just leave it be. It's one of those friendships where you put a lot into it, like a piggy bank. Over time it grows, right? Like, you take them to see something they love. You're there when they have a breakdown. I thought of her as my family and gave her the "if you ever need anything talk." She said that it was the same for me. Recently, she moved in with a few of her friends that I'm not as familiar with, different social groups. No big deal. But now she won't talk to me, and I can't get change out of the piggy bank when I need it. The common advice is always talk to them. Maybe they don't know. And I have. Easily a half dozen times in 4 months. I've been stretching myself thin trying to keep the friendship going, but recently, when I was able to pry a dime from the porcelain swine, we were having a discussion that I had good, qualified knowledge of from loads of course talk, but she kept giving me the sort of bullshit responses that you give someone that, after a couple drinks, becomes an expert on any subject. And I was a bit frustrated and reminded her that it's what I studied, to which she was totally confused. She had been the first person I told after I finally, after years of struggling to find my interest, picked a major. She forgot. That was a last talk. And I'm just ready for it to be over at this point. But it's not easy to let something you love die, even if you feel powerless to save it. I'm the kind of person that is always ready to offer help to friends if I can. Doesn't matter what it is, as long it's nothing illegal, I'll help. So I moved to Japan for studying. I had a friend who helped me when I got there with translation and paperwork. So I was grateful. We became roommates for about a year. He was on scholarship, but he had issues, and so he was kicked out of the program. So I helped him out, financially. Basically, I paid for his living expenses for about a year. I even paid for half the treatment cost for his girlfriend who had a mild tumor, which made things difficult for me, but I managed. A year later, I went through financial problems since I started university and had to move and pay fees. Things worked out for him and he moved to an apartment, and his girlfriend who became his wife found a good job and he got into university with a scholarship, and I was happy for him. When I moved I wasn't able to pay the internet bill which was under his name and we both used, so I figured I'll pay it when I can and didn't think to ask him. A month later he calls me pissed off, yelling at me that the I annoyed him about the bill and keeps calling him, and I better faking pay it cause it's irritating him. I told him calmly, if he can pay it, and I'll give him half when I can. He got more pissed and told me it was my apartment and it's my responsibility to pay it, not his. I instantly snapped, told him to deal with it, since his name is in there not mine, and hang up on him, cut off all ties with him, and never again wasting my time on this ungrateful asshole. 5 years ago, I dropped my best friend for the better part of 25 years starting back in public school. He and I went through hell and high water together, but we always had each other's backs through it all. We started on the drink back as when we were 12, but he loved it to the point he couldn't control it, and over the years it got the best of him. Predictably, this led to an awful lot of bad decisions being made on his part. However, I never judged him for it. I remained a true friend, counseled him as best I could, no matter what mess he found himself in, and defended him more than anyone should ever have to. However, he continued to drink way too much and seemed to be jealous about my station in life. More times than not he made snide comments to that extent whenever we drank together, and as a result we saw each other less and less. Then the day came when I met my wife. He didn't like her from the start. First he tried to run her down based on the address she lived at. Then he befriended her on social media and alluded to all kinds of dark secrets and bad behavior I was keeping from her. I responded by telling him to stop meddling in my business. My wife, girlfriend at the time, unfriended him and he proceeded to have a public hissy fit on my Facebook page. As I work for a professional institution and connect with my bosses and coworkers on Facebook, I quickly blocked him from posting on the page. Then he started sending abusive PMs, telling me I had been acting like a douche for the last few years. The tirade, which I'm 100% sure was alcohol induced, culminated with him attacking me over a bunch of nonsensical claims and insinuating I was a self-centered degenerate. Now I'm not one who keeps score during friendships, but it was obvious that he stood to lose a lot more over our falling out than I did. I seriously questioned what I was supposed to be getting out of this one-sided friendship and promptly dropped all contact with him altogether. His last words to me that I cared to read was a request that I not flatter myself into thinking he'd lose any sleep over ending a quarter century of friendship. After consideration, I think it only fair that he should simply return the favor. All I know is that my life has steadily got better without him in it, and I don't chalk that up to mere coincidence. So I had a friend who started a painting company. Anyways, to help get a start off the ground I worked with him for free, except coffee. I would go door to door every weekend for 5 months to get him clients. After that I would help him manage his company for free because he was my friend. This went on for about a year and a half. Anyways, flash forward, I get a good job in my field, largely in part due to my managing experience. All they needed was a reference phone call to ask my friend if I worked there. They call him the first time, no answer. The second time, no answer. Finally, after him not answering the third time, they asked me about it. So I called him up and told him to answer the phone call, and if he wasn't going to answer, to just sign the already typed up letter stating that I did what I did by the end of the week. He never signed the letter. Luckily my boss was super understanding about the situation, and he said what my parents told me from day one. Don't do business with friends. Ever since then I haven't spoken to him. He tries and it's awkward because we have the same group of friends, but I'm starting to realize that this group is pretty shitty, never there when I need them, yada yada yada, and it's time for me to move on. TLDR, helped a friend manage his business, couldn't even give me a reference. I had some really close friends from kindergarten to 7th grade, private school, and near the end of the school year, in May, I ended up having to leave the country for a few months with my family, so I missed the last day of school, and as it later turned out, the last day of that school, because they suddenly cut off the junior high portion. When I came back in October, I was devastated that they'd all gone their separate ways to different schools. Since it was private school, we didn't live anywhere near each other, and I never saw most of them again. I tried to reach out to as many of them as I could track down, by phone or IM, but none of them really seemed to care about me or the others. I guess it was just especially tough for me, because I never got to say goodbye. To this day I still have dreams about seeing my classmates again. Anyway, fast forward to middle of university, around 10 years later, and one of these friends of mine, whose mum knew my mum, calls and asks to meet up, saying it's been a while, etc. I was pretty happy, and despite not being able to drive, walk miles off to a coffee shop to see him. Turns out he wanted me to vote in a local youth party election for him, and because I had several siblings, to get them to vote too. To vote, we'd have to sign up / pay for membership, and then take several hours out of our day to travel and submit our vote. Not like I knew anything of his campaign either. Just vote for me cause you know me. I didn't say anything, save for well, it might be difficult getting my older siblings to do a favor for me, let alone you, but in the mind it went something like, what the fuck? 10 years of you mostly ignoring me, and you call me up to ask for a favor because I have a large family? TBH, I think his mom orchestrated it. She had some beef with my mum years ago over the pronunciation of my name and was probably jealous about some shit. Still, he was a grown man by then. Went home and never talked to him or wanted anything to do with him again. This isn't as dramatic a story as some of these, but I'd love to get it off my chest. I was good friends with, let's call her Ashley. We liked the same things, worked in the same industry, met in college, where we were both minoring in the same subject. I thought I finally had a friend who I could relate to in almost every way. The only difference is that I'm always very communicative if we had plans to meet, while Ashley is not. I always let you know when I'm on my way, and if I can't make it to something, I'll let you know well in advance. Ashley is always late, or, more often than not, cancels on me at the last minute. Ashley switched jobs to come work at my company. Great. Let's get lunch to celebrate your new job. And we did, and it was great. Ashley suggests we make it a weekly thing. I'm ecstatic. My friend now works at my company and we are going to get lunch every week. I'm the youngest person in my department. It'll be nice to have lunch with my friend every now and then. Even if I have to walk for 15 minutes each way to meet her, she won't come to me, and we work on opposite sides of the campus. As expected, Ashley flakes on me at least every other week, but fine. It's still nice to get out of the office every once in a while and catch up with her. The last time, she ate quickly and said she had to get back to her office halfway through lunch. Okay, fine. I wish you had told me you were busy today and we could reschedule instead, but alright, see you next week. Half an hour before that lunch, I text her to ask if we are still on for lunch. Ashley says she has a meeting during my lunch break and we'll have to cancel our weekly lunches completely, not choose another day of the week, Just completely cancel. When I ask if she wants to choose another day, she says we'll just have to schedule them one at a time, since she has a lot of lunchtime meetings. Totally understandable, right? Except she's not available every single time I try to make plans with her. Then she texts me out of the blue to ask a question along the lines of what's the name of the two main actors from your favorite TV show. I answer her and ask why, to which she replies confidential. That's still the last word in our text chain. It's been 5 months. I'm not your Google. I'm not at your beck and call for only when you want to talk or meet or get food together. Fuck you, Ashley. I'm a person too. The final event that caused me to think I will never see this person again, ever, was when we were in a final semester for our terminal degrees, fast friends for 3 years. We had a class in mediation, where our grades were composed of our teacher observing us mediate between two parties. There was one mediator and 2 groups of attorney and client. My friend and I had not been assigned the role of mediator until our final exam schedule was published. I was assigned as a mediator, she was assigned as an attorney, which meant more talk time for her as client was usually very quiet. 3 hours after our schedule is released, she calls me asking me to switch the mediator/attorney positions with her. Shocked, I politely say that I'm sorry, but I hadn't been one all semester and I wanted that experience really badly. She immediately burst into angry tears and yelled at me that she would switch with me if we were in reverse situations. How could I be such a horrible friend? 2 major events I was there for her. I dropped everything for an entire day while my fiance was visiting for a week to custom create her a costume for a party we were attending that night, Halloween masquerade. Because she was crying that she had nothing appropriate to wear and really wanted to go. And 2, I would hold her hand and take care of her when she aimed for guys who weighed around 200 plus lbs less than she did and predictably got shot down every time. When she asked me to switch for the exam, I knew there was no friend on the other side of the phone. We graduated in 3 weeks and I would never call her or see her again. I blocked her number, deleted her from Facebook, and never looked back. I just had this happen to me a while ago. My best friend at the time started to talk to my girlfriend without stop. He would text her any chance he got at school. At shindigs we had, he would sit in the back of the room just messaging her while the rest of us were playing video games, drinking soda, and high-fiving. I'm talking hours. I eventually got fed up with it and told my girlfriend that I was uncomfortable with them communicating that much. Essentially she said, "Fuck you, I'm gonna talk to him anyway." As it turns out, he was sabotaging my relationship so that he could get with her. So it actually ended up working, except he didn't succeed in getting with her. So after the breakup he got all of our friends together without me there and basically told them that when we broke up that I had rapped her and kicked her out of my house. Didn't happen. They believed him for a few days and then one of my friends confronted me about it. So I cleared everything up with them and he ended up getting kicked out of the group instead. Then about 2 months later, out of nowhere, one of my other best friends tells me that he's dating the same girl. I told both of them that there is no chance that I'll ever associate with them in any way whatsoever. TLDR, best friend faked up my relationship. Later other friend starts faking same chick. Lost 2 of my best friends. Learned that my best friends in high school were the ones I never had. I once had a friend who was pretty lazy and always wanted me to do stuff for him. Get up and get me the remote. Can you go take out the trash for me real quick, etc, etc. I used to be overly nice and would always do it, but one day I snapped. One day, back when renting movies was still really a thing, he wanted to come over but asked me to pick him up, of course, because he didn't feel like driving. So we are on our way back and he asks me to stop at Blockbuster. I thought we were going to rent a movie and I was already irritated because he was in his pajamas, so I knew he was going to ask me to go in and get it. Instead, he takes some movies out of his backpack and hands them to me, asks if I can go return them really quick. I don't know why, but I just got so mad right then. I said no. He was shocked OBV because I never said no, but I said it. He got mad, and I got mad. We started fighting. He was like, I can't believe you're too lazy to get out of the car and drop off these movies. I'm in my pajamas, I can't do it. And I was like, you're the lazy one. I'm tired of doing all your shitty errands for you. It went on like that for just a few minutes. I made him get out of the car and left him at Blockbuster in his pajamas. We never spoke again. One friend was a musician working part-time in a grocery store. We'd been friends for like 4 years, went to the same high school, and lived close to each other, so we saw each other a lot. One of my closer friends, I'd say. A few years after high school I got my first apartment with my then boyfriend, now husband. A few months later my friend got kicked out of his dad's house, couldn't live at his mom's, and came to me. The story went that he had gotten fed up at work and quit, which pissed off his dad, because my friend now had no income, and his dad kicked him out. This is what my friend told me. We were sympathetic, figured some deeper issue was at play. Friend is openly gay, and let him stay with us. Within the first week staying with us, he'd spent the $2,000 he had saved up on booze, drugs, and cab rides to and from bars/nightclubs. We were getting irritated, and I felt bad, because he was staying with us, because he was my friend, and it was my fault my boyfriend was dealing with this. Tried to gently prod my friend into looking for work, even something in music, like giving guitar lessons. No deal, would not look for work, was apparently above any job out there. Spent the next few days with him constantly asking us to buy him beer/wine/cigarettes, even though money was tight. I should say, now that my boyfriend and I were working part-time each, but making enough for rent/food/phone/internet/ECT point and enough to keep 2 people happy. 2. We had never planned on a third person living there, and this strained things. Eventually I got laid off from work because a busy season had wound down. Nobody at work had mentioned that this was a thing to me, so it left us even tighter money-wise. Finally one night my boyfriend was at work, and I was at home with my friend. He asked me when I was going to get a new job, because we were running out of money. I'd had enough, and said, when are you gonna stop being a faking mooch and get one yourself? This set him off something fierce. He swung his acoustic guitar at me. When I dodged it, he started smashing it into random shit, the fridge, the walls, anything. I ran and hid in my room, locked the door, thank goodness it had a lock, and screamed at him to leave, or I'd call the cops. He eventually left, and tried to buzz up to the apartment. I ignored it. Phoned my husband at work and he came right home. Eventually my friend's brother came to get all his stuff. Haven't heard from him since. Good riddance too. Used to date a very abusive guy in high school. It went on way too long, and was a really rough ride that left me pretty afraid to walk around the city alone, should I ever run into him. Cut to age 20, and I'm dating a great guy, and have been long term for about a year and a half, living in a rented house with my boyfriend and another friend we'll call Roland. I was looking for work, and trying to avoid something with customers, because I didn't want to have my abusive ex come in and trap me behind the checkout counter somewhere. By luck, a call center was hiring, and having a job fair. Perfect. Went to the job fair, did well, got a second interview, aced it, got hired and told to come in for orientation. Roland, who had also been looking for something non-fast food, also got hired, but we were in separate orientation groups. When I went to orientation they directed me upstairs, and told me the room number. Headed up there feeling super bubbly and good, happy to have a job, where I felt safe. I'm about to step into the orientation room and my faking ex is sitting at a computer in there, waiting for them to start. Turned right around, ran down the stairs to the lobby, ran into Roland on the way out. He asks what's going on and I explain. He says he'll see me at home. Get home and explain to my boyfriend. He says he knew what happened, and now I'm confused. He says Roland had phoned him before I got home and told him, but also said he didn't see my ex anywhere there. I'd been friends with this guy since grade 7, and he didn't faking believe me. I should add my ex is a coke addict who was probably only there for the paid orientation. Still, I couldn't bring myself to be in a room with him. I felt super hurt on top of the guilt I had for quitting the job due to fear. My boyfriend believed me, still does, and thinks Roland's an ass. It wasn't immediate, but I froze him out while at home. and we eventually got him to take the hint and find his own place. Faker watched me go through everything with that ex and still thought I was quitting because I was too lazy to work. This summer, two of my closest friends convinced me to make the 2+ hour drive to stay with them for a couple weeks. They knew I didn't have a car at the time, so convincing my explosive asshole father to drive me was like making a faking deal with the devil. The weeks leading up to my visit I'm like, so you guys are sure it's a good time? You're sure it's cool if I come? And they give me the go ahead. So I endure the torturous drive with my father, and when I get there, neither of them are even in town. I call them up and one is like, oh yeah, I'm in Charlotte with my boyfriend, I think I'll be back later this week, and the other is apparently on the lake and won't be home for hours and hours, even though she knew I was coming and needed someone to pick me up. My dad leaves and I'm stranded. My friend's little sister ended up picking me up and driving me to the girl's house. The house is a utter shithole, worse than it's ever been, and both her parents are absolutely wasted. They're both violent alcoholics, it turns out, and I have the joy of sitting in this house alone with them for what seems like forever. I'm texting my friends and calling them this whole time and they are making up excuses like, oh well, I thought I told you. I didn't realize it was going to take this long. Oops, see you later. So I go fuck this and arrange for my distant cousin to just pick me the hell up and take me to her house the next day. The next morning as I'm getting ready to go, my friend goes, I'm in town now, and I go, okay well I'm about to faking leave, do you at least want to see me once before I leave town? She literally said, well, no, I'm still with my boyfriend. From then on I didn't have anything else to do with them. Fuck you, you cunts. Oh man, this brought up a bad memory, but here I go. Back in high school my friend Leo introduced me to another friend, who we will call Bill. Bill was gay, which was totally okay with me, as our mutual friend's father was gay, and I consider him my father as he has done a lot for me. So, I became good friends with Bill over the years. We hung out and talked a lot. He went through a lot of depression and social anxiety being gay in Utah, and I was there for him to come to when he was having meltdowns, as he lived minutes away. I got a job out of high school and then got laid off due to budget cuts. He said he could get me a job at the place he was working. After getting hired, I wanted to move out of my parents' house. So backstory here, Bill had a huge crush on this guy named Shade, self-given, and they had this weird flirty relationship. Eventually he convinced Shade to move to this apartment with him, and it was a 2-bedroom and I ended up sharing a room with Bill. After about 2 months, I found out his crush had shifted to me. Again, I was not really worried about it. It happens and I'll let him know that I'm not gay, and though I'm really flattered he considered me attractive, but it would not lead to anything but a friendship. Fast forward 2 weeks later on Labor Day in 2013. I was sleeping and suddenly woke up with his hand down my pants. He was groping my business, and when I woke up and said what the fuck, he first tried to push me down, so I punched him in the face. He then got up and ran into the bathroom, where I noticed he wasn't wearing any pants. I instantly got dressed and left, completely in shock. My parents had just gotten divorced, and they were moving out of the house that day. As I was helping them, my mom noticed something was off about me. She asked if I was okay, and I lost it, breaking down completely. I then called my friend Tree and we went out to lunch to talk about it. As I told him, he said, holy fuck, that explains the text he sent me. Turns out, he had texted all of our mutual friends to not believe anything I said before I even told anyone. After lunch, I called my parents and asked them if I could stay with them because there was no way in hell I was going back. My dad had gotten a 1-bedroom apartment and my sisters moved with my mom, so I was essentially homeless. This is where my gay dad comes into play. I called Leo and he said he would call me back. 5 minutes later, I get a call from his dad saying, come home, we have a bed for you and you can stay here as long as you need. I'm so sorry this happened. Then I call my girlfriend at the time. I know, should have called her sooner, but, yeah I know, attempted rap. She broke up with me over the phone, saying I can't do this. We are breaking up. I'm sorry, and hung up. In less than 24 hours, I lost my home, friend, and sense of safety. I refused to talk to Bill at all. I had no room in my heart to forgive him. Fast forward to 2015, Leo is now living with me in a house we rented, and he gets a message from Bill asking if he can come over. Leo had spoken to Bill a few times, but each time it led to him asking about me, my life, what I was doing, if I was dating anyone, and the kicker, if Connor_babe had come out, yet he was under the impression I was gay. Leo did ask why he did what he did, and his response? He told me to get him off while he was sleeping, like he was sleep talking. I thought it was weird, but he demanded it. I lost it when he said that, but I digress. He then asked Leo if he could forward me an email with him explaining himself. It was 8 pages long. I did not read it, had no interest to. After 1 year of therapy and trying not to attempt suicide for the 4th time, I had left it all behind me. I only told Leo to tell him that I did not read it, assumed it was an apology, and to let him know that I had no interest in speaking to him. I still have dreams about it all, and I wake up in a panic. TLDR, friend tried sexually assaulted me and nearly ruined my life completely. I'd be happy to answer any questions. I'm open about it. Edit. A few phone auto-corrected fails. This faking guy. I moved back home after not even visiting for nearly 5 years. Childhood friend coincidentally is moving from his trailer park home into his parents' huge faking house with his wife and newly adopted kid that his parents paid for. Asks me to come over and help him move sheet out, paint the old house, refinish the deck, and help him move everything into his new house. Once that's done, don't hear shit from him. At that time his parents drop another $50k plus on adopting another kid. I ask him on a lazy Sunday if I can come visit the new little guy. Even after he tells me he's doing absolutely nothing, he tells me I can't come over because he's getting into a routine. So I stop talking to him for a few weeks. Friends and family ask if I've talked to him. I say no, he only calls me when he needs something. Literally next time I hear from him is when he'll need something. I say that verbatim, and sure as shit about 4 days later I get a text with, "Hey, me and the wife ran into legal issues with the new adoption. Anything you can donate would be appreciated." A text with this link attached. Not sure where they're at in the adoption process, but I don't give two shits. Feel free to donate, or don't. I don't really care if he ends up with this adopted kid or not. I feel completely used, and will probably never speak with him again. What's worse is that he won't even realize that we haven't spoken until we randomly bump into each other when I go home and visit. This is a perfect example of childhood friends growing apart. Okay, so this is kinda long, but whatever. I have 4 sisters and 2 brothers. I haven't spoken to one of my sisters for 8 years without a lawyer present. Technically, she's my half sister, but I didn't even know that until I was older. My family has been through the shit and my siblings were always tight when I was younger. As I grew, I started to realize how shitty Kay was. Kay had her first child when she was 19. She moved back in with us, and we took care of her baby while she went out to party. But Kay was so cool, and she was young and her baby was cute, so we didn't really care. Kay came close to marrying 3 different men before she eloped in Vegas with a high school sweetheart she hadn't seen in 5 years. He also has a child. Kay finally moves out. They have 2 more kids. Kay refuses to work, but does dig them into over $100,000 debt besides the mortgage. Kay offers to leave her kids to babysit the youngest sister and I, 14 and 17 at the time, while he traveled for work. Kay takes all grocery and bill money, spends it on new clothes, etc. Kay has an obvious affair and leaves us alone for days. When I approached her to ask if she was okay or needed help, someone to talk to maybe, she proceeds to tell me I'm going to hell for dating a girl, that I'm the worst person she's ever known because I'm judging her, and that she's always hated me. After going back to kids and hubby, remaining abusive and aloof to everyone around her, he divorces her. He takes her to court for custody. I showed up to testify on his behalf, with copies of the downright evil emails she had sent me. I told them about how she was physically abusive to her kids, and guess what? She disappeared. He got full custody. Haven't heard from her or about her since. We reconnected after a long time, and she ended up moving back to my city. She's had a rough time with her last relationship, so even though we flirted a lot, I made sure to give her space. We were fairly inseparable for a while, and I introduced her to my friends, and it seemed like everything was getting along quite well. Then occasionally I'd hear something from one of my other friends about something I'd supposedly done, at the same time as hearing what other people had supposedly done, which I knew to be untrue, and it became clear that she was somehow playing people off against each other. Strange, but I'm a big boy, I can get over it. Next, she had a one-night stand with one of my best friends. It upset me, but it's not like I own her. Anyway, this then turned into a really nasty thing between the two of them, like real animosity. Unpleasant. At the same time, she started treating me really badly. I'd go out of my way to help her out when she was feeling low, but I'd just end up being a target for her, and I started to see she wasn't interested in getting better so much as she was in almost bullying me, I guess. So I cut ties with her about 2 years ago, and have been much happier without her in my life. She tried to apologize to me a couple of months back, and I felt bad doing it, but I looked her in the eye and told her that we were done. Oh yeah, and for some reason she was massively racist and didn't even see a problem with it, despite me and other friends clearly spelling out that it wasn't okay and made us uncomfortable. My childhood best friend. I have a terrible relationship with my mom, and I'm not the only one. One of my brothers no longer speaks to her also. Same with my aunts, uncles, and cousins, basically a whole family. My mom is a compulsive liar, manipulative, mean for zero reason. Actually, the family is pretty much convinced she's a psychopath. So yeah, you get the picture. Anyway, my mom always loved saying how she wished my childhood best friend, we'll call her Ali, was her daughter. And when I cut all ties with my mom in summer of 2014, Ali stayed in touch with her. I was fine with it. They had been close all these years, and my mom never did anything nasty to her. But then, she started using Ali as a tool to try and piss me off. Things like taking selfies with her sweet daughter Ali, inviting her over for weekends, buying her a bunch of stuff, tagging her in inspirational pictures like when someone deletes you from Facebook. It's like trash taking itself out, so I see it. So yeah, I was kinda getting annoyed at these sneaky attacks. It got to the point where I'd be on the phone with Ali not knowing she was at my mom's, and I was on speakerphone. Ali is pretty easy to manipulate. My mom had her ways with her. And Ali always claimed she didn't want to get in the middle of our arguments, but my mom put her right there. So when I found out, I told Ali that I wouldn't accept she takes part of my mom's games to hurt me. Ali and I grew up together, and she knows just how bad my mom has been. I asked her to be loyal to me, and that she could be friends with my mom no problem, but this whole calling each other mom and daughter, and going behind my back putting me on speakerphone thing weren't acceptable. She told me my mom's my mom, but her friend's her friend, like they're two different people, and that I'd have to deal with it. I decided to cut her off. To this day they still spend weekends together, and she's pregnant now, and my mom calls the baby her grandchild. Granted, I should've gone about it some other way, as Ali and I not speaking must have her thrilled. But I was tired of the bus. 20 years ago I was best man at my friend's wedding. I didn't want him to marry her. She was evil. Pure evil. But I stayed silent and did my best man bullshit, and they got married. She tried to murder him a couple of years later. He escaped. They separated and he eventually got a divorce granted 10 years later, while she was in prison on drug charges. He asks me why I didn't say anything before the marriage. I tell him it was not my place. I didn't like her, but he wanted to marry her. He makes me promise to speak up and stop him from making a mistake if it happens again in the future. He settles down with a new woman. They even buy a house together. I do the good best friend thing and try to like her. But I can't. They aren't married. So I tell him, as per your instructions, you asked me to intercede if I thought a woman wasn't right for you. I don't think this one is. In fact, I know she's not. You're in for a world of hurt. He tells me I'm wrong. She perfect. I'm obviously jealous, mistaken, or whatever emotion you want to throw onto it. I'll let him believe he's right, because he's my friend and fuck it. He asked for a warning, but chooses to ignore it. I eventually get into an argument with the woman. She's a bitch. It was bound to happen. I've known her 4 years now. I've known him 25. I think I can read into it. Anyways, I'm now banned from their house because she hates me. Whatever. They even have an in-house separation over it. She threatens to leave, blah blah. Please do. But he kowtows to her. Again. Whatever. A little later, we are still friends and hang out away from her, by the way. I even go so far as to offer friend a job. A great job. I'm in a successful management position, and I'm the boss. I can offer him more than he ever had before. Enough to eventually pull him out of all of his financial woes. Financial stability. Large corporation. One of the largest in the world actually. She finds out it was me who offered the job. She never even has to see me. But, it's me. So she refuses to allow him to take the job. Because it's me. That pretty much did it for me. He was the closest friend of a lifetime. A true brother. I had more love for him than my real brother. Close street friend of more than the majority of our lives. And all he does is live a punishing life with a person who abuses him, and he refuses to get out or heed advice from all who try to help him. Refuses help. Refuses the love of friends and family. Of those who put themselves on the line for him. I used all my favors for him. I lost stature at my job because of him. He was on a pedestal and promised to take the job with pay, offered only to people with more qualifications, all because I was respected by my superiors. But she said no. I was done. I tried one more time in the future to contact him. After I had been laid off, I realized sometime later, because I couldn't deliver the star employee that was promised. Had I delivered, I'd still be there. Another colleague chosen for layoff instead. But that black mark was big. He didn't immediately return my calls or messages. I was humbled, looking for some comfort from my best friend. It never came. So I realized, he wasn't a friend. Not anymore. Not for some time. I realized I didn't deserve to be treated like that. And I should never accept that kind of bad treatment from anyone, ever. Nor should you, dear reader. If a friend is willing to take, not give, they are not a friend. I had to rush my wedding date to accommodate a new job out of state, and my best friend slash roommate's fiance took it as a personal insult that we would try to upstage her multi-month parade of narcissism by hosting our smallish, very informal wedding a month before her extravaganza church wedding. So the couple attend my wedding, and she throws a fit about not being served a plated meal. It wasn't that kind of party, but there was plenty of food and drink. She demanded that her fiancé, my best man, leave with her as soon as the makeshift reception started so they could have a full meal. He tells me he's going to feed her and be right back, but she overheard him and went into full tantrum. They left and never returned. I left the state for work, but paid my own way back a few months later for their wedding. I was ready to fulfill my obligations as best man, despite hating his fiancé and wishing he would call it off. However, she was afraid my wife would cause a scene at her wedding as payback for her shenanigans, so she had him remove me from the wedding party. Only he never told me to my face, and I found out that I was out from one of her relatives, who didn't know who I was, when they were sharing this LOL story about Summer's hole, who thought he would be the best man getting the shaft. His family, an old school Italian American slash Sicilian family with delusions of mafioso grandeur, took great offense on my behalf and things started getting ugly, so I did my best to defuse things by being happy and flippant. After the reception, his uncle came to me and said we all know who really is the best man here. A very humbling compliment coming from a Sicilian. I did not cause a scene, nor did my wife. We left quietly after the toasts and that was that. Following protocol, I announced to his family that he was dead to me. I expressed regret that I wouldn't be able to call them family anymore. Through no fault of their own, they understood and wished them good health. Never spoke to any of them again. One exception, he sent a friend request on Facebook that I accepted without comment, since I felt that not accepting it would say more to him than just clicking OK and then going about my life as if he didn't exist. I sent a message to him a few years later to express my condolences when his father passed. We were very close for many years, but he ignored that message. Fair enough. Back to being dead to me, as I was taught by his father. May he rest in peace. A past friend of mine was going through a separation. She had a lot of shit going on and was stressed. Before all this we were very close. We watched each other's kids, hang out all the time. She was even at the hospital when I had my baby. We'd been friends for years. So it came as a shock to me when I arrived at her apartment with my daughter to bring her a letter of character for her custody hearing that I met a man. This man was never introduced to me, so I do not know who he was. However, I remember distinctly police knocking on the door asking to come in and him being pinned down and arrested. I was scared. My daughter was crying and my friend and her kid were hysterical. Turns out this guy was out on a bond, but something happened and he was supposed to turn himself in to police 48 hours prior. She let me walk into that with my child. I was stuck talking to police over how serious it was that I was in the room with a wanted felon etc. My 2-year-old was dragged into this. Cass was called on my friend and I sat there terrified they would take my kid. Cass kept asking for my information and my daughter's information and I kept refusing and telling them I wanted to talk to a lawyer before I would give them any details. I however was happy to tell my side of things to the police. It was over an hour before I was cleared to leave. I'm not sure if the police gave any of my details to the Cass worker, but it's been over 2 years and I haven't been contacted. Last I heard through people who have kept in touch with her, she's been in and out of rehab several times, lost custody of her kids, and is dating a guy who is on parole for domestic abuse. She risked my family, and I'm done with her. I wrote a really long post in r/atheism about this, but I'll briefly restate it here. If you want to read the whole story in the aftermath post, it starts here. I had this really religious friend that I would talk to and hang out with pretty much every day. We both liked each other, but he was hesitant to ask me out because I wasn't a Christian. Eventually we did date for like 2 weeks, but he broke it off because to him it felt wrong. We continued being friends until he got together with his female childhood friend, who had previously given me advice on why I should not date her friend due to religious differences. Warning signal right there. I get asked by his new girlfriend to go a Christian event with her, her boyfriend, my friend, and another female friend of ours. It was like her attempt to be my friend too. They promised that it was purely for the free music and the social interaction, not so much the religious part. I went out of politeness and had a god-awful time that you can read about in the other post. I demanded an apology for being tricked into going to that event, and my friend, his girlfriend, and the other female friend that was there all cut me off and refused to talk to me ever again. They said that I'm too far gone and that basically I'm going to hell. That was about a month ago and I'm okay now. As far as I know, my ex-friend and his girlfriend are still together. I don't really see them around our university that much. They're pretty much gone from my life. I don't need them. A little late to the party, but here it goes. I had been best friends with Tay, not the real name, for about 10 years. After graduating high school I decided to move away from home. This was mostly due to personal reasons and my own mental health. My move took me about 2 hours away from my hometown. After a couple months Tay sent me a text saying I didn't care about her because I did not message her enough. I told Tay that if anything was bothering her I would want to know, but I'm not a mind reader. I also never text anyone, ever. Anyone who knows me knows this is true. I just don't have anything to say. I don't do small, useless talking. Tay said I was a terrible friend and I did not care enough about her because I did not text her every day asking how she was. I thought that was ridiculous and stopped speaking to her. I made sure to tell her that if she couldn't text me when something was wrong and instead blamed me for not just checking on her constantly, then it didn't feel like a real friendship anymore. It's been over 5 years and she still badmouths me to all of our mutual friends whenever she sees them. She moved a couple states over a couple months after our falling out. Sorry for the ramble. I had one of those friends who always seemed to have more interest in making a profit than just hanging out. He would try to throw these random parties at his small apartment. Well, these invites usually went like this: hey, you want to come to a super fun party I'm thinking of having next weekend? Me, yeah, I'm free. Him, okay, cool. So I did a thing. I thought it would be cool to pass out little gift bags to everyone. I'm going to give a packet of Luba flavored condom and probably some candy. This one happened to be Sech themed or something. Me, oh that's pretty neat him. Yeah, all that I'm asking for is $5 from everyone to cut costs for the gift bags. Me, on second thought I will not be attending your party. He would pull stuff like this regularly. But the final straw was when he threw a housewarming/stock his shelf party. I had spent 6 hours the week before helping him move to his new apartment and then went out and got him a liter of rum chitter and a fifth of Crown Royal since he told us this would be the shelf for his guests to drink from when we had our regular game night. So about 5 game nights after the party I go to get a drink. I've probably had about 2 since the party a few weeks ago, and he stops me and says if I want to have any more drinks I need to bring him more alcohol. I said fine, put the drink down, left and haven't been back since. He also had a, if you bring alcohol and don't drink it all you should leave it as a courtesy rule. Except it wasn't a courtesy, since he would just badger you if you didn't. TLDR, had a friend who used friends as a means of making a profit, tried to make me buy him more alcohol or not be allowed to drink at his house. It was in September 2014. I was back home to help my father finish gutting the house of furniture and general stuff. We finally managed to sell it and had to have it cleared out by a certain date. I needed a break after a few days of that though, so a friend and I met up with a second friend, and the whole time we were driving with him made me realize the last 4 years I spent hanging around with him were an embarrassing blemish on my character. The friend we met up with went on tirades about black people, drove erratically, and told us with little to no shame about the bastard daughter he had that he won't help raise. Not the daughter that isn't his. No, he admits she's his daughter. He just refuses to help raise the kid. He was always pretty scummy. Hearing how he essentially maximumed out on being a deadbeat on purpose was my wake-up call that he was probably the worst piece of shit I've ever known, and memories of what he actually was like came flooding back to me. I realized that it was probably really perplexing to people how I could possibly have hung around with him considering we had nothing in common and were polar opposites. Then there was the constant embarrassment when he did things like act loud or saying something obscene that I, at the time, would ignore as just oh that's just him. What can you do? Like the times he made fun of the vice principal for being Jewish, or when he tried to beat up a special needs kid for making a joke about the Irish. My family is Irish too, but it doesn't justify trying to attack someone, especially someone who didn't know any better anyway. Afterwards he called me his conscience, but that's not being a conscience. That's just acting the right way to someone doing something plainly wrong. I spent the majority of the time we were friends just expecting him to grow up and not be a dick when he got older. It was clear at that point he hadn't, and I was done waiting for him to mature. I played along for the next hour or so until he dropped us off near the house. Haven't spoken to him since. Copy paste from a similar question about a month ago. When I was around 19 years old I hung around with a clique of about 5 or 6 others, plus another dozen or so associated relations, sisters, significant others, etc. One of the clique members, Walter, came from a wealthy family and we often used his house as a launching point for any given evening's events. His parents were rarely home, so it became common practice to simply knock on the door or ring the doorbell and let yourself in. His house was something like 9,500 square feet, so this was almost mandatory, else you'd be standing outside forever. Anyway, one day I went over there and there were a number of other cars in the driveway already. I knocked, walked in, and made my way to the back of the house, where my friend's bedroom was. I could hear voices talking and laughing. When I reached the top of the stairs I heard my name, so I stopped and listened. I quickly realized that they were openly mocking me and laughing about it. A lot of the things they said were just outright mean, really vile stuff that emotionally killed me. I was caught between anger and anguish and didn't know what to do, so I just stood there listening. After some time Walter's sister came out of her bedroom, not in the same room as the others, and saw me there and asked me what was wrong, but within seconds she also heard the others and understood. She turned around to, I later learned, yell at the others while I turned and left the house. I got home, turned off my phone, and pretty much locked myself away for a few days. When I came back to myself I decided I was better off without them, so I just cut myself off from them. After a few weeks of ignored phone calls they stopped trying to contact me altogether, and that was that. Long time lurker, first time poster here. My best friend and I met during our first year of university and we clicked instantly. Fast forward one semester and his parents ran into a very rough patch, ended in divorce, and during that time he sort of withdrew into himself because his mom got drunk quite a bit and became borderline abusive. So I try to make him feel better and I get on depression alert. I've also been depressed before, so I wanted to keep an eye on him. This included calling him every night with his consent. He said it was okay to talk whenever I called him. After a while I heard from a mutual friend that he was telling all our friends that I was an annoying bitch that bothered him every day and forced him to talk to me. So I didn't speak to him for a day or two. I think I had assignments due, and when I called him up again at night I asked him if he was sure that it was okay that I called him. I confirmed it 3 times, and then we chatted as normal. A week later I find out from the same mutual friend that has still saying that I'm annoying him by calling him, so I just stopped. I waited for him to initiate communication of any form with me, and I still am I guess. This was almost 3 years ago. I heard over the years from mutual friends that he did get better and moved out of his mom's house and that he's happy, successful and has a girlfriend now, so I'm glad life worked out for him. My close friend and roommate had been having problems for a while. Constant lying, passive aggression, she talked me to other friends. Lots of times she'd just pretend I wasn't there, like some 3rd grader giving a cold shoulder. For months, I'd try and ask her if everything was okay, but she'd always shut me down. This was a pretty tough time in my life, family health scares. So I chose the path of least resistance, deal with it, rather than confront her, have a big blow up, and be stuck living together. 2 weeks before the end of our lease she asks to talk, clears the air, asks if we could still be friends. I knew I could never feel as close to her as before, but hey, I was game for a less tense apartment, even just for those 2 weeks. A few days later she went right back to her old habits. She called our other roommate, sobbing that I'd ditched her. I was at an event I bought tickets for months ago. She knew about said event and had told me she would be out of town. It was so small compared to other sheets she'd pulled, but it was definitely the last straw. Couldn't do it anymore. It was clear nothing could salvage even the semblance of a friendship between us. Blocked her number. Moved out a week early when she wasn't around. Never said goodbye and never want to. We had a good friendship once, but she had tons of issues she needed to work through, and I wasn't about to keep sacrificing my own happiness to be her emotional punching bag. This'll get buried, but my brother, well, half brother, but that didn't matter growing up, always treated me like a normal brother and was nice to me. He was always the black sheep of the family. Never seemed to quite be on a stable path. No drugs or drinking or anything like that. Just an odd streak of not holding jobs down well or always something weird happening that ended up with him looking for a different job. Laziness? Lack of follow through? I don't know. He seemed to get caught up in some shitty dealings, like brokering contracts that weren't on or some such. Anyway, his relationship with my parents wasn't great, especially with my mom, his stepmom. I'm sure she treated me better in general, but she didn't treat him like crap or anything. Bought him a car in high school and stuff. Well, years pass, he gets married, has kids, does his own thing for a while. Eventually, despite the chip on the shoulder or w/e, he decides to try and bury the hatchet and re-establishes a relationship with my parents. Things are good for a few years, family dinners around the holidays and whatnot. My parents even purchase a small business for him and another brother to run. Well, something happens. He stops talking to me. Stops talking to just about everyone in the family, except my other half brother, the oldest. I'm saddened by this, but hey, it's his prerogative I guess. Turns out, he forged my dad's signature and bought a car on my dad's credit. As messed up as that is, the fraud honestly wouldn't have been quite as bad if he kept paying it. At some point though, he just stopped payments and my parents get a collections call. After getting to the bottom of it, they figured out what happened and basically repoed the car and more or less disowned him. End of story. Right? Wrong. I get a call out of the blue a few years later from him. He's not in good financial shape. Surprise. He and his family are going to get evicted and he's begging for help. I'm generally saying no, but then he drops the bombshell. He wanted to commit suicide so that his family could collect on life insurance. I told him fuck you. I told him that was the stupidest faking idea. Did he think his family would rather have money than their husband/father? Did he want his son to grow up without a dad? I gave him a huge lecture, which was odd, being the younger brother. In the end, I gave him an ultimatum. He could try to patch things up and work it out with me, or I would straight up gift him $1,000 with the caveat that he'd never talk to me again. He took the money. I know it's not the most fair choice for him if he knew that his family would get evicted without the money, but I was over his continuing cycles of poor judgment and self-sabotage. Haven't talked to him since. I used to have a friend that I'd known since middle school. I'm in high school right now, so it's not like I've known him for decades. Needless to say, he was one of my best friends. All throughout middle school, he was by far the person I talked to the most. I was a loner in middle school. We got into the same high school, so I was pretty excited. He was very different from middle school me. He was outgoing and funny, and I was just shy and weird. Let's call my friend Philip. Going into high school, we were still friends. It was pretty much like middle school. We weren't in the same classes, but we still hung out with each other very often. Like I said before, Philip was a very outgoing person, so he was constantly liking girls. He jumped from one girl to another. Rejections didn't seem to faze him. First year of high school, and he ends up liking this one girl. We'll call her Jessica. Jessica was a girl he had gotten in his class. He eventually befriended her in the attempt to get closer to her, which worked. They stayed friends all throughout 9th grade. When 10th grade arrived, Philip has the idea to ask her out to our school's homecoming dance. He buys roses for her and gets dressed all nice. During lunchtime, he goes up to her table and asks her out to homecoming. Everyone was watching. She accepts his offer to homecoming and that was that. I didn't know who she was at this point, so I didn't care about this situation. Anyways, a couple days before homecoming my friend tells me that Jessica was planning on breaking up with Philip after homecoming. Apparently she knew he liked her, and she wanted to put an end to Philip's trying to get closer to her. She tells him that there was no future with them. After that, they stopped talking, obviously. Philip tells me that he doesn't like Jessica anymore, understandably. I thought this girl was kind of mean and felt bad for my friend. Enter the next semester. One random weekend I'm just chilling on my computer when my friend Larry messages me on Steam asking if I wanted to play Minecraft with him. I hadn't talked to this friend since 9th grade and I was bored, so I said sure. I get on Skype and he adds me to a call. I notice that it wasn't only him in the call, but Jessica as well. I didn't want to flake on my friend after I'd already told him that I'd play with him. So I stayed on the call. I realized this was a bad decision. As we play, I start to change my mind on this girl. She seems like a really friendly person and maybe I misjudged her. She also wasn't bad looking, and her personality was really okay. You know where this is going. I ended up liking this girl. Philip said he hadn't liked this girl for quite some time, so I thought it would be fine for me to like her. I end up telling Philip that I liked her, and he ends up making fun of me. He had already gone down that path, so it's understandable. He messed around with me a lot about it. Some jokes were kind of messed up, but whatever, and everything was fine. As the weeks went on, Larry, Jessica, and I kept playing with each other. We became pretty good friends. I eventually told Jessica of my feelings for her. She said that she didn't feel the same, but that she wanted to stay friends. She explained that she had lost a lot of friends due to them developing feelings for her, and that she didn't want me to be another one of those people. I felt bad for her, and stayed friends in the hopes that maybe she would end up liking me. Yes, I was a dumbass. Over the course of this, I came to learn that 2 other people liked Jessica, one of my best friends, who we'll call Joey, and the other friend that introduced me to Jessica, who we'll call Larry. Larry had told me straight up that he liked her and that he was going to compete with me for her, so that didn't bother me. What did bother me was my other friend Joey liking her. I had known Joey since the beginning of 9th grade, and we had become very good friends through video games. We were constantly competing with each other as we were very competitive. When I found out that he liked her, it hurt. I didn't want to have to compete with my best friend for a girl. I confronted him about this, and we decided to back off. Everything seemed fine like this for a couple of days, but I realized that I was unhappy. I thought that if I would rather go down fighting than just giving up. I told my friend I wanted to keep trying to get this girl, and that the best man would win. We agreed to this, and the situation between us got better somehow. Even though I would be sad if Jessica ended up liking Joey, I wouldn't resent him for it, and he felt the same with me. I was okay with how the situation was, and I felt happy. Throughout this whole time that I was friends with Jessica, Philip used the opportunity to become friends with her again. They worked through what happened at homecoming and seemed fine. She let him become her friend again because he said he didn't like her anymore. I thought something was off, though. Knowing Philip for as long as I noticed that he acted differently with Jessica than with other girls. I thought he liked her again. I asked him about it, and he told me that he didn't. Philip was known for being a liar, so I made him promise me that he didn't. Even though he told me he didn't, though, his actions continued to say the opposite. I became convinced that he liked her and confronted him various times about it. I told him that it would be okay if he had been lying before, but that if he did like her to just tell me. He continued to deny it. I took his word with a grain of salt, always being very suspicious of him. As the year went on, I came to believe that he no longer liked her, and that maybe the way he acted like that was because he used to like her. Philip started to like other girls and even dated one for a while. He seemed to genuinely like them, so I backed off. He even constantly joked about secretly liking Jessica, which raised some flags at first, but eventually I accepted it as a joke. This went on all throughout 10th grade. We all became a group of friends, Larry, Philip, Joey, Jessica, and me, and things were going great. She was still friends with us for some reason, even though she knew that more than half the guys in our group liked her, but whatever. We were all waiting for the day that she ended up liking one of us. I actually believed it was me for a long time, due to some things she said, but it turns out she was like that with everyone. In fact, everyone believed that she liked them, but that's irrelevant. A couple of months into 11th grade, I get a message from Philip on Facebook. "I need to talk to you. Call me." I asked him what was so important that he needed to call him, and he just told me to call him. I did, and he started the call with me being right. I asked him about what, and he said that he did like Jessica. He explained that all the other girls he liked were just covering up the true feelings he had for Jessica. I was in shock. I had finally started to believe that he didn't like Jessica after so long of me doubting it, and he drops this bombshell on me. Furthermore, it would mean that he used his not liking Jessica as a means to get closer to her, as Jessica wouldn't have ever been friends with him again if he still liked her. I was very angry at him. He had lied to me this entire time about Jessica and even used other girls to cover up his true feelings. I decided I could no longer be friends with him. All of those times that I begged him to tell me the truth about his feelings towards Jessica, and he just looked me in the eye and lied to me. I couldn't handle being friends with someone that dishonest. I demanded that he tell Jessica. He said he would, and I hung up. The following day, I noticed that Jessica and Philip were absent from the lunch tables. I pull aside Joey to tell him what happened, and we discuss. When Philip and Jessica finally come back from their private talk, he looks happy. I don't take this as a good sign, and he comes up to us saying, "Hey guys." He senses that we need privacy and leaves. Later, I ask Jessica in private what she thought of Philip liking her. By this point, it was already well known that I was mad at Philip and that we were not on speaking terms. She says that I should understand about whatever happens in the future and that she wished it wouldn't happen like this. I asked her what she meant, and she replied that she couldn't tell me. However, Throughout this whole conversation, I got what she was implying. She liked Felip. When I thought about this, I was devastated. Not only had this guy, who lied his way into getting closer to Jessica, successfully fooled everyone, now he had gotten the girl that I liked. Later, I go to Joey's house and knock on his door to tell him the probable news. Joey and I lived in the same apartment complex. He was in disbelief too. He says that all we can do is hope that it turns out she was talking about something else, and I agree. A couple of days later, I ask Jessica about it again. This time, she outright confirms her feelings for Felip. I didn't know what to say. I told her that I wouldn't be able to be friends with her anymore, and she understood. She knew about Felip lying to everyone, and she still chose him. I couldn't agree with her decision, especially after her months of saying that he was a jerk or annoying. I called Felip over again to tell him, and he was solemn. He took it a lot harder than I did, as I had already prepped for it since a couple days before, but I guess he was still holding on to hope. When school starts again, Jessica and Felip call all of us over, Joey, Larry, and me. They publicly announce their feelings for each other. Strong was the word used to describe Jessica's feelings for Felip. At this point, I was pretty much done with all of this. Continued in comment. I was and am sick and tired of his high school bullshit drama. It's all about him. He's always in the right, I'm always in the wrong, and that's how it will be. The last incident was he was going to fly over to the state I live in, and we were going to hang out for a week or more going on vacation, and he cancelled on me because I didn't call him and congratulate him on graduating college when I said it multiple times before. I took time off from work so we could hang out and go see certain events and parks, and this just really pissed me off. I was working, I was busy, and I had a lot of things on my plate that he didn't care about. He wanted me to apologize, and I said no, because it's not a big deal. He didn't congratulate me on my accomplishments, which I don't care, because I don't need a pat on the back when I do something, even if it's very difficult. Well, this has happened before. Complaining about me doing something or not doing something, and making a huge deal out of it, and yet he has done the same shit to me. We took a break from contacting each other because of that kind of scenario, and then came back to the normal kind of friendship. But then the college bullshit happened, and I said that's that. I'm tired of this shit. The dude lives at home with mommy and daddy still. He has no job. The last one he quit would have been an awesome step up towards what he wants to do for a career, and left within a couple days because his back hurt from sitting down. He still lives in that kind of high school drama stage, which is pathetic, and puts it on me as if I want to deal with it. Maybe when he has some life experiences, he'll learn to put that shit in the past and move on, but he won't do it with me because I'm done with him. He's just so damn annoying. Back in high school, I had this friend who was a girl and was 2 grades above me. I'm male. Was I attracted to her? Maybe. Never really figured out how I felt, but the possibility was real enough that I internally struggled with it. Anyway, one day after school, out of pretty much nowhere, she hands me a folded piece of paper and tells me not to open it until I get home. Inside is a note asking if I want to go to prom with her. After thinking it over, because I'm extremely awkward and don't typically like large gatherings, I decide to accept. A few weeks later, she invites, after consulting with me, a mutual friend of ours to go to prom with us. Since he didn't have a date, I think sure, why not? So he ends up driving us in his Chevy Suburban. Prom was a lot of fun, but at one point she broke off from me to go dance with him for a few songs. I didn't think anything of it. The whole slow dancing thing has become pretty informal to me in the time I had been at prom. No problem. After prom, my group joined up with my sister's group. She and my date were in the same class, and we went to a local bowling alley. After about an hour, my date and the other guy left and went to McDonald's. I didn't see them again for the rest of the night. I spent the rest of the night with my sister's group. She and I were still friends and talked regularly for the next year. I didn't hold any grudges and really didn't even think about it until about exactly a year had passed. She and I went with my sister and her then boyfriend to watch him play in his college's jazz band. While there, we were talking, and I decided to ask why she had invited him to come with us. In the time that had passed, I had stopped liking him and was really just venting my disdain. She declined to comment. Later that night, she sent me a text message telling me that she invited him because she was supposed to go to prom with him, but couldn't because her mother didn't like him. And then it all made sense. She texted me again a few days later and asked if I wanted to go walking around our town with some friends. I replied no. That was the last thing I said to her. It's been almost 4 years. I don't miss her. I got engaged in January of last year. My husband to be and I picked a date, the second week of the following January, because it was the last weekend before I started my spring semester. I announced the date, and my high school best friend, who probably would have been in my bridal party, went totally ballistic. She flat out accused me of stealing the date that her and her boyfriend picked. I then pointed out that they weren't engaged yet, and we were, so while I was sorry, I wasn't going to change the date. Then, the screaming. She screamed at me for 5 straight minutes on the phone about how I was a terrible person and how could I do this to her, and so on. I finally said to her, I'm sorry, but I'm not going to listen to this anymore, and I hung up. That was the last time I had spoken to her in 2 years until yesterday. She and I share a birthday, 1 year apart, and for the first time, she posted on my Facebook wall, sending birthday wishes. I tersely replied that I hoped she had a good day too, but I have absolutely no intention of rekindling that friendship. It's sad, because she threw away a 20-year friendship over one date on the calendar. And, I found out later, that the reason she wanted that date is because her father was going to be in town. He lives part of the year in a foreign country. Did she explain that to me? No. If she had, I probably would have moved the wedding back a week. Bridazillasariel, folks. Take heed. I'm that guy who doesn't usually understand how easily some people let go of friends, or am dumbfounded when people say they're alone, when they do next to nothing to keep in contact with people. The one particular friend I had in middle school, I became friends with because he was bullied by everyone, so I sort of became friends with him out of pity. Because he also didn't seem to realize he was getting picked on either. He was very mentally slow. He did various things before this that weren't great. But I think my final straw was one day, I had to get yelled at by my dad to get him to spend the night at my house. We had these plans since the beginning of the week, and he arrived at my house and then went, "Oh no, I forgot my PJs." I said it didn't matter, or offered him some of mine. He denied and called his mom. I asked if he was having his mom bring him some. But no, he left, and it just pissed me off more than it should have. But he did similar things a lot. My parent hated him because he would complain to my parents a lot over weird things, and they found him very obnoxious. And I usually found his older brother, who was also mentally challenged, was usually more fun to be around. Dude added me on Facebook not too long ago. I sent him a message saying hi, how are things etc. A week later no response lol. Okay then. A friendship I broke off out of anger and came back to was my one friend, who basically told me a huge elaborate lie when he didn't want to hang one day when he could have said no, and when I called him out on it because it insulted my intelligence, he had his cousins harass me over the phone. It was ridiculous, and my friend did do a few things in the past I disliked, plus I was not in a good state of mind at that time, was very depressed. He is also slow. Months passed and we became friends again, and he hangs out with me at my place nearly every month for the past couple of years. I've had lots of interesting friendships to say the least. My husband and I had a friend, we will call him Lewis. Lewis was one of our closest friends, someone I considered a brother. He was even the godfather of our son. In hindsight, Lewis was a mooch and a thief and an emotional vampire. He used his shitty upbringing as a crutch and an excuse for why he was emotionally stunted. He had been living with us for several months when this story takes place. My husband, Lewis, and I were running an event together. It was Lewis's, originally, but he didn't have the skills or the cash to make it happen, so we stepped in as partners. Lewis's only job was to head up advertising, which he swore up and down he had more than handled. Only 600 people show up. My husband and I had to use a savings to pay off the location and the special guests. Lewis's only response when asked to shoulder some of the costs? You signed the contract with the location. It's your debt, not mine. Because of this financial burden, my husband and infant son, and I had to go from a 3-bedroom house to 1 room at my mother-in-law's house. Lewis didn't care a single bit about my family's well-being, as long as he got to do whatever the hell he wanted. I have not spoken to Lewis since 2 weeks after the event in question. The last time we talked was a series of terse texts instructing him to have his belongings removed by the end of the day. This was May 2014. I have kept this vague, but I kind of hope Lewis sees it. Fuck you, Lewis. We gave you so much, and you treated us like shit. I will never forgive you. Consider yourself lucky I'm a better person than you, and have chosen not to spread your deep secrets to all of our mutual friends. Vent addendum, we are in a much better place financially now, and are in a lovely apartment. My son just turned 2 and hopefully has no memory of this toxic individual. Good riddance to bad rubbish. I read every comment in this thread on the off chance I'd hear my story, but I guess I'll spend 4 hours reliving a moment from 9 years ago from my perspective. The setting: in college I was roommates with a good friend, 7+ years. We also made friends with a new girl right away. I had a crush on this one guy, but he started dating the new girl. They broke up after a couple of months, but he remained one of my close friends. My roommate disliked him pretty much since day one. The following year my roommate, the new girl, and I all lived together. At this point, my roommate told me that the two of them had discussed it, and the new girl would feel more comfortable if her ex didn't come into the room. For context, this was the 4th person my roommate had banged from the room. Previous offenses: a class friend of mine insulted her favorite video game, teasingly. A very close mutual friend of ours insulted a character design she had created. The critique was accurate. I didn't witness this one, but a dorm neighbor said something lewd/propositional to her. She had also wanted to stop being friends with a girl in middle school because the girl hugged too much. Culling people out of her life was just a thing she did. To me, new girl would be more comfortable if he wasn't around. Translated directly to I don't want him around, and now I have a legit sounding reason, especially since the words were coming out of her mouth, not the new girl's. The incident: 1 or 2 months later, there's a group of 5 people, including new girl, but not including the roommate, in the room working on our online physics homework together. Now, the band X is a physics major, and he's a semester ahead of the rest of us, so he would occasionally help with this. I forget whether we just saw him walking by the door, or if someone actually summoned him. It didn't seem like a big deal at the time, but he stood in the doorway for maybe 15 minutes trying to explain how to do something we couldn't figure out. I tried to get him to write it down because it's physics, dang it, but he wouldn't come more than a few feet into the room, as he knew he was banned. Now, throughout this interaction, new girl didn't appear uncomfortable, and she had every chance to tell him to get lost. She could have also spoken with me privately after the fact. Instead, about a month after that singular incident, at about 10:30 p.m. I was summoned to have a serious conversation with a roommate. Again, new girl was not present. I think she had gone home for the weekend. The new girl had finally revealed my transgression, and the roommate was very upset that I had showed a lack of respect for the agreed upon rules. She was upset to the point where she'd reached a kind of cold, calm rage. Keep in mind, new girl has never once in any way communicated to me that her ex makes her uncomfortable or shown any kind of discomfort around him. They often ended up together in social situations in public since they still had all the same friends. Every communication of this rule had come from the roommate, who hated the guy even before any dating occurred, so I was pretty sure she was using the new girl as an excuse. Also, the new girl had a tendency to agree with the roommate in everything, so it seemed plausible that the roommate suggested the banning and the new girl agreed to it. The given reason for banning the ex was because they dated. This led me to assume it was temporary, like, after the sting of their separation wore off, everything would be cool. At this point it had almost been a year since their brief relationship had ended. I don't exactly remember my reaction to being scolded like a naughty child. I do remember objecting that he had hardly even came into the room, and the roommate being particularly peeved that I had intentionally snuck him in when she wasn't there. When That just happened to be when I was doing my physics homework. In the end I probably said okay and left, as I needed to collect my thoughts, and I was also on my way out to the diner with my boyfriend and his friends. The next morning as I was on my way out the door again I had a brief encounter with my roommate. I had my collected thoughts about how the new girl always seemed fine when she was in the same room with the guy, and I felt like the roommate was blowing things out of proportion. I don't remember exactly what she said, but it explained why the whole thing was such a big deal to her. She said that the ex had abused the new girl during their relationship, sexually, and that I had to stop hanging out with the guy. Again, I was left speechless, since this guy was my friend. I had my boyfriend waiting for me in the car, so I pretty much turned and walked out on that revelation. The fallout, but it didn't feel like a revelation. It felt like bullshit. I didn't think she was lying, but I could see her blowing something out of proportion and sticking to it. Now, if the new girl had said it, I absolutely would have believed her. But despite being totally friendly to me at all times, she never talked to me about it. And even if it was completely true, I still felt like my previous actions/assumptions had been reasonable, based on the information I had been given. Well, I never got any clarification from either of them. My way of dealing with a friend who was constantly cutting people out of her life was to just keep being friends with everyone and carry on. In high school, this had worked great, and I had managed to keep my friends. So I kept hanging out with the guy, away from the room, and from then on the roommate only spoke to me in short as possible replies. Once I stopped initiating dialogue we never spoke again. She wouldn't even make eye contact with me. We lived together in awkward silence for a good month or so, before I moved to a different dorm room. She gave me a tin of cookies via a third party for Christmas with a note saying I didn't need to do her webcomics website anymore and thank you. We traveled in parallel social circles for the rest of college, but I rarely saw them. Last I heard, they both went to grad school out of state. Where are they now? A couple years later I started dating the band X on and off for several years. After that, it seemed fairly likely that he did act untoward towards the new girl. His ability to pick up on sexual/social cues were pretty pathetic. However, I don't think my belief or lack thereof in the truthfulness of the accusation really had any bearing on how this situation bore out, as even knowing this from a first-hand perspective I still wanted to be friends with/date him. He needed to work on things, but he still had good qualities. The guy who insulted the character design got a little bossy during a hot S game on Wednesday, but we are still friends. The girl who hugged too much is still one of the nicest people around. This is pretty much the most faked up situation that I've been a part of and for that I'm grateful, but all these years later, and I'm still just looking over my shoulder thinking, what even happened back there? TLDR, roommate 1 stopped speaking to me because I remained friends with roommate 2's sexually abusive ex and invited him into our shared living space while roommate 2 was there, but they had only told me they didn't want him around because they didn't like him. After roommate 1 revealed the real reason, I kept hanging out with him in other locations. 2 guys I was friends with. We'll call the first one Edition. We were really close for a long time after we graduated high school. Then out of nowhere he started to be an asshole to me. One time he sent stop in a text and I said stop what? Then he replied with being fat, which he's a mega douche about people who are barely overweight. Yes, he's that guy who used to be chubby, then became a vegan that's always talking crap about people who eat meat. He just started to become more and more of an ass. His parents actually kicked him out about 6 months ago, and I don't blame them. He was a complete asshole to his very sweet, kind mother, and he wouldn't get a job. That had nothing to do with the end of our friendship. Ed always justified his actions/words by saying he was going through a bad time/not meditating. I stopped talking to him more than once, which was stupid on my part. I really shoulder-vended it the first time for good. He's really manipulative and is very good at both making people feel like shit and arguing. He thought it was so funny. When he got kicked out, he sent me a text saying his phone was being shut off and asked for a way to contact me, like email or something like that. I didn't even reply. The next friend was such a good sweet kid when we were in high school. Then after he became a spoiled rich kid, he turned into a condescending, egotistical douchebag. I'll let him get away with so much, and when I confronted him about everything, he turned it all on me, making me out to be the bad guy. He thought it was so funny to make fun of people, and to be condescending. He had very sheltered views on everything. Too trusting, and doesn't see reality as it is. That last part doesn't have to do with our end of our friendship, but I wanted to point that out. He fell for a pyramid scheme that was just shut down, because it was deemed an illegal pyramid scheme. We got into a fight about that, and I just let him win, because he wouldn't let it die down. He's stupid about a lot of things. Single 4 years at a time, because he usually goes after the wrong types of girls, and he doesn't go about relationships the right way. I know he's good to the girls he dates, but they generally aren't good to him. He belittled me, put me down constantly, and trivialized, and made me feel like shit for the rap jokes. I talked with him 3 times, and it wouldn't stop, until I broke down in front of him. Then, he smokes all the time, and he does stupid things when he's high. I resent him. I almost hate him for everything he's done to me. I really think it's great he's optimistic about everything, but I think he's going to learn the hard way that you can't trust everyone and anyone. He doesn't understand anything that has to do with psychology. For example, rapists don't rap people for sex, they do it for power and control. Actually, a lot of people on Reddit doesn't get it, but if you've never been through sexual abuse of any kind, then I wouldn't expect you to understand. He thinks that it's the girl's fault if she freezes, and it's her fault if she doesn't absolutely fight back with all her might. When I confronted him, he said that I have stupid beliefs, especially when it comes to Obama. His go-to insult is stupidity. I stopped talking to him completely, and I'm just done with him. This happened with a friend I knew from the military. Back during those years we pretty much had each other's backs, so I thought I could trust him on his word. Of course things change, and over the years, everybody I knew from then went and did our own separate things. So being separated by distance, things went to being more cordial than close, occasional Facebook post, or whatever. So this summer I made mention that I was really burnt out with the last job I had, and saved up enough to try starting new. Turned out his live-in jail fire and moved to Texas, and he decided to move there too. So what seemed like a gesture of being friendly in regards to what was going on, he offered to help me get set up down there, so there'd be yet another friend nearby. In turn I offered to help with the move from his old house, but he declined as he had movers taking care of it already. So down in Texas he and his girl were staying at another friend's. They were cool enough to let me crash there, and he was moving to his own house rather soon. Was hoping to work out a deal to perhaps rent a room from the other friend after he moved out. Problem was they both started being odd about things and not wanting me to be around whenever the other friend had his wife around. I kept everything tidy at the time, trying to keep a small footprint, didn't care what they did or whatever. But that didn't matter. Was pretty much pointed towards an extended stay hotel and given a not so subtle hint to leave. So trying to get back in touch and finding out what the hell was going on, I did some calls. Offered to meet over lunch, etc. But friend turns into Casper the Fing skating ghost, and his Facebook posts indicated that he missed FWB from his old town, but could care less about catching up on anything else. From the way I see it, I guess I'm not eligible, nor bringing anything for what must have been their little swingers club. Couldn't care less about that, so was treated like a plague rat. Definitely not cool. Couldn't get situated with a job soon enough to cover rent, so gave up on the Texas move. After going through all that disappointment and lack of support, it's pretty much over after that. Friend of mine, since I was about 2. I had moved, but we kept in touch for about 5 years over texting and the such. She was always a fairly sensible person. Got a boyfriend, that was the first one in a while, and was going though the typical "oh, everything is so perfect" stage. Didn't blame her, was happy for her, etc. while being alone after several emotionally abusive relationships. Then she starts to flirt with me some. Really confused, but knew it wouldn't go well, even if she was single, so I tried to back off a little bit. Didn't really want to, but sometimes just gotta give yourself a kick. Met a nice lady of my own, we are all happy. And then my friend hears some things and starts trying to convince me that my LDR girlfriend is cheating. No, just had been distant for a bit, something I understand. Then my friend comes to me with more and more problems than ever, always leading back to the boyfriend. It culminated into a clusterfuck I didn't bother to see the end of. What actually drove me away was the fact that she revealed to me that she got him by him cheating, cheated on him, was destroyed by him cheating on her, completely disregarding any advice on how toxic the relationship was, and then confessed to trying to convince me my girlfriend was cheating because she missed all the attention I gave her. Then said she couldn't stand the thought of dating me and just liked knowing how much she could mess with my heart because it made her feel pretty. She has tried to contact me several times. I have blocked her on everything I use. My girlfriend and I are now approaching 2 years of happiness like we have never experienced before because nobody has understood dark works before, which even my friend mocked me at times for. I was the friend throughout high school that was always trying to keep my friends from doing bad things like partying, drinking, smoking, doing drugs, etc. Well, eventually my friends stopped listening to me and just did what they wanted to do and just ended up blowing me off and eventually not even associating with me. Anyways, after I graduated it was really just me and my best friend. We were very close, he was like an actual brother to me. He had always listened to me throughout high school, but once we graduated he began to change. Very slowly he began to pick up those bad habits that I had always tried my hardest to keep him away from. I found myself going with him to these parties, strip clubs and clubs, to kinda help monitor what he was doing and trying to keep him from doing anything too stupid. It got to the point where I would tell him that we don't need to do this, let's go do something else, and he would get mad at me. I knew our friendship was slowly falling apart. Speed things forward a bit to my birthday. He pretty much set the whole thing up for me and all his plans were things he knew I didn't like. He invited a whole bunch of people I had never met, had plans to drink. At the time we were under the legal drinking age, go to the strip club drunk, go back drink some more, and hit up some other places. Basically he used my birthday for himself. He had called me on the phone to tell me the plans. I asked him why he had set up all this crap knowing it was everything I was against. We basically ended up getting into a small argument about how he was going down a wrong path and how I was boring and not fun. I told him that I had appreciated that he had went through the trouble of setting up all this stuff for me, but I wasn't going to attend this so-called party because it's not the lifestyle I wanted to live, and he yelled some more things at me and hung up. Haven't spoken to him since. You know the saying, if you smell shit everywhere you go, check under your shoes? That probably applies to me, because I've lost more friends than I can't count. Oftentimes, it usually stems from me being too needy/depressing to be around. I sense their irritation with me and cut them off before they get a chance to do so first. But here are 2 special cases. 1. I spent a summer messaging a girl because had similar goals and background, non-romantic. However, seeing how eerily similar she was to me made me realize how shitty of a person I was. Everything she talked about was all about her own life. And she was overwhelming. It got to the point where she was talking to one of my former friends about having me arrested for just saying that I wished I was as good as he was, perhaps phrased poorly by me. I grew steadily more testy over time, until when I tried to talk about my own issues and she completely ignored me and continued to ramble about her own life, I called her names and cut her out. Another is a childhood friend of mine who got addicted and literally lost all motivation to do anything. We're in college, and he has made no attempt to even fix how faked up his life is. He just never seemed to learn from his mistakes, and didn't recognize that he needed to assume responsibilities as an adult. If I had to put it in a kinda way, he was one of those kids not meant for college. Doesn't do homework, misses exams, doesn't care about anything. I realize our culture overemphasizes accomplishments, and he was probably sick of it all, but even so the direction his life was headed was not good, for his own sake. I tried talking to him, sympathizing with him, being stern with him, all to no avail. I was frustrated with him, partially because I was once in the same boat as he was, and I couldn't stand to see him doing this to himself. But of course, that didn't go over well. He told me to leave him alone. I tried contacting his parents. After that, there was nothing more I could do for him and nothing more that I wanted to do with him. This girl and I both came from conservative Asian families, though hers was more so being Catholic and all. I guess she had sex in her car and accidentally left evidence, then pinned it on me and my boyfriend at the time when confronted by her mom. I didn't know about this until I got a call from her mom asking to explain myself. Then again, I probably should have figured she was the kind of person willing to leave friends behind when she literally suggested to just head back to her dorm without her roommate, who we had arrived with and was missing in the city somewhere with a dead phone. I've told this story before, and I've heard it both ways, with some people on Reddit telling me that I was a shitty friend and I should have just covered for her. To me, there's a difference between covering for an action that could have been an accident, which I would gladly do, and covering for an action that's clearly intentional and in no way could have been accidental. Not to mention that her mom had known me since we were friends in middle school. To me, a friend is not someone who would permanently slander someone for multiple parties. Her mom would have inevitably spoken with my parents or throw someone under the bus without their knowledge simply to cover their ass. If she was willing to throw away 8 years of friendship in an attempt to save herself once, then so am I. I'm currently debating whether or not to break with a girl I've known for over 10 years of my 18-year-old life. Maybe one of you who have been in a similar situation can help me out with this decision. This girl has been a part of my life since we both were just little kids. 2 years ago we had a period of being a couple, but that ended rather quickly through her ignoring me and expecting me to forget it had ever happened. After that, we've still kept in touch on a rather regular basis, and foolish as I've never really lost my love interest in her. I've expressed it once, after we broke up, but she said she wasn't interested, so I accepted that, and I've not made any moves on her since. What she also told me was that I was the best friend she could ever imagine. Despite this, she never asks to see me or anything like that, and this is what really gets me going. I wouldn't have a problem if she said she didn't want anything to do with me. Of course I'd be sad, but I could accept it. However, when she says I'm an awesome guy and that I'm one of the guys she never wants to lose, yet she does nothing to keep our friendship alive, I have a hard time believing what she says is true. I've done a lot for her to make her notice me, inviting her and some other friends over several times, and I should add, as I'm incredibly shy, this is quite a big move for me, yet any time I've heard she's done something with friends, be it movie nights, football games or what have you, I'm never invited. A few months back, I asked her about it and asked her to say it like it is. I told her that it would feel much better to just know she didn't think anything special of me, rather than going around believing she did. Once again she told me how good I was and that she never wanted to lose me. I didn't tell her, but I decided I'd give her 6 months to show me that what she said was true. Now we are 4.5 months in, and she haven't made a single thing. In a way I'm looking forward to ending with her, cause I believe it'll end the pain I feel when thinking of her. Yet whenever I do meet her she's an amazing girl, and I'm not sure I want to lose that. I really don't know what to do. Don't ask me why I wrote this. I'm lying in bed after waking up early, and I guess I just saw this thread and had to get this out of my system. Not expecting any of you to even read through this mess. We were best friends since we were 3, now we're 23, and I can't even look at him anymore. He doesn't even try to succeed at life anymore. His mom takes care of him 100%, while he plays World of Warcraft and watches Netflix all day. We'll call him T. I set up an interview for T at my work, but at a different location. I had a date and time and everything for an interview. The job was guaranteed and all he needed to do was show up, and he would be working the following Monday. About an hour after the scheduled interview, I asked T how it went. He said it went great. The next day I texted the manager of that location and asked what he thought, and he said he didn't even show up. This happened a few weeks ago, and after I found out that he lied to me and didn't show up, I just let it all out. I'll type the message that I have on my phone. Dude, I don't even know where to begin. It's really faked up that this is what you've become. You're letting your mom take care of you like you're 10 years old. You sit on your computer all day. What do you expect when she can't take care of you anymore? Do you think she'll never come to her senses and kick you out to the streets? Where do you think you'll be in 5 years? School didn't work out for you, and you refused to get a job. Not only that, but you faking lied to me. Did you think I wouldn't find out? It's a faking job that I had lined up for you. I don't know how else to tell you, but you're a faking lowlife and you need to know it. I don't know how you live with yourself. I'd really hate to just drop 20 years of our friendship, but honestly it's better to do that than to say that my best friend is a 23-year-old who's never had a job and lets his mom take care of him. That's it, man. I'm done. Have a nice life in World of Warcraft. I sent that text a few weeks ago and haven't heard from him. So, I'll be the first to admit I'm not always a good friend. I'm selfish, lazy, stubborn, loud and can get pretty obnoxious, even though I'm trying to tone it down. My first year of college I was a few hundred miles away from home, still in the state though, and I would be home every weekend or every other weekend to see my horse after he'd gotten sick at the college with me. So when I'd be home we'd hang out at the barn and get Starbucks and stuff, but a lot of the time I would be exhausted from the drive or would need to get homework done and get to bed early so I could leave at 3 AM to get back in time for classes. But they saw this as me blowing them off and never having time for them and only doing what I wanted to do. Now, in all the years we'd been friends they'd been to my house once or twice. That's it. They'd never come over because it was too far and in the middle of nowhere. It's maybe 10 minutes from the freeway with only 4 turns. But what really set it off was when I was home one weekend, and so was my batshit crazy ex. I told them that I would absolutely not see him or talk to him after the shit he had done. Stories for another time. And they agreed after a while of trying to talk me into seeing him because I owed him an explanation. And he needs closure. I had thought they dropped the subject until he showed up at Starbucks. I saw him pull up in his truck and immediately left. He actually chased me around the town in his truck trying to get me to pull over and talk. Why I didn't just call the cops I don't know, but I eventually lost him and just went to the barn for a bit until I got a text about half an hour later from my friends apologizing and asking me to come hang out at the park and promising that he had gone home. When I pulled up and got out of my truck I heard something in the bushes and saw him crouching in there. I should have left then but instead I walked to my friends and got in an argument with them while he stood behind me as close as he could trying to get me to acknowledge him. Eventually I just cussed them all out and left, but the next week we had talked it out and I had forgiven them because honestly I didn't have any friends at the time and one of them had their house there themselves and was planning a party. At the last minute they told me my ex was there, so I turned around and told them that I couldn't come because I had math homework that I should have been doing and that I wasn't comfortable being around him and alcohol. They started yelling at me, completely disbelieving me that I was trying to turn my schoolwork around and turned it into me calling them immature and stupid or something. I hung up on them and went home. I haven't spoken to the one who threw the party since that day. Okay, I have a bunch. A lot of difficult lessons learned, and I have become a little wiser from it all. I've the tendency to become very quiet and refuse to stand up for myself. People would take advantage until I'd have enough then cut them off without warning. Sounds extreme, so now I know when to stick up for myself before shit gets worse. From about 14 to 17 I had a friend in school, and she always had this air of I'm wiser / better than you, but I brushed it off. She'd complain to me daily about this girl she was dating online for months. Every day in class she'd show me texts of their arguments and I'd give her the best advice I could think of. She wouldn't care and would continue showing me these texts. In the meantime, I was having a rough time at home, but never talked about it. I didn't want to burden others and wouldn't have known where to begin. I liked it that way, but I was still very quiet. This girl continued with the texts and how her parents were shit because they wouldn't let her travel the 3-hour train journey on her own to see this girl, whatever. This girl starts to then get very close with my now ex. She was a certified gamer girl, whereas I liked video games from time to time. He became besties with her instantly, and she'd have marathons over his. Took me a while to figure out she was sleeping over his a few times a week whilst I wasn't there. To this day I don't know whether anything happened, but I have a feeling that something was bound to happen eventually. They'd never thought to ask, is Mollipop comfortable with this? Of course I still would have said yes to it anyway. One day, things at home came to a head when my mother threw me out. TLDR couldn't stand her boyfriend, would be verbally borderline abusive to my youngest siblings behind my mother's back. I kicked off, and she threw me out. So, I was miserable, downhearted at 16. I never spoke of it until the girl said, "Why are you so miserable?" in a dead, annoyed tone. I mumbled that my mother had thrown me out, and she said, "That explains it. All you do is moan. I haven't got time for this." I stayed away from her for a long time. I'd told my ex. He shrugged, "Oh that's sad," and continued to have game marathons with her. I stayed a great distance from her for a good year, until my ex kept saying, "She's changed now, she's really nice." So, by this point I'm living with my dad, and shit was way better in this environment. My dad went on holiday for 2 weeks, and had left me a little bit of money for food. Well, long story short, at school, the girl said, "I'm going home early today, and will be driving past yours, want a lift?" And I was shocked, doubtful, then realized that maybe she had matured. I'd said, "Would you like petrol money?" and she declined fully. She dropped me off, and things seemed okay. A week later, I'd invited my now ex, 2 friends and her over for a drink. I stupidly used some of my own food money to get us some snacks and frozen pizza, and things were good for the night. About a month after all of this, I get a text from her. "You do know you owe me £5 for petrol money, right? Give it to me whenever you can, thanks." I was shocked, but agreed initially, until I realized, what? I'd asked her how, as she'd insisted she didn't need any at the time, completely denied wanting the money, and a month later she's asking for it. She says, "Well, I need it now, I have a party to go to." I actually stuck my ground. I said, "Look, I'm broke right now. If you told me before, I would've given you the money instantly when I had it. I haven't got it now. I don't know whether this is entirely fair. Are you faking with me?" She gets very pissy, starts demanding. I realize she's taking me for a ride. She needed a bit of money and didn't know how to get it, and tried to use me. She argued about this to me for a good 2 days, until I said, "Tell you what, since we are bringing things up from the past to get money, I believe you owe me at least £5 for the pizzas and junk food I bought us all those weeks ago. Call it even?" Yeah, okay. Fine. That was that. Haven't talked to her since. She's fuck buddies with my ex these days apparently, so maybe my hunches weren't far off. I felt like a dick, as if I'd lowered to her standards. But fuck her. When I was about 13, I was borderline sexually abused by my friend/ex's uncle. He was around 22-30 years old, had a family, wife and all. As soon as I got home, burst into tears, and told my parents everything the next day. We went to the police station, and reported it. They said if he ever did anything like that again, it would go straight to court. When I went to school after that, he kept making jokes like, "Oh, don't do that, or she'll call the police on your family." They all knew cause it happened at a party, and the police interviewed everyone that was there, but didn't tell them the whole story. I guess for privacy reasons. The harassing on that subject, and the fact that I can't remember which order, they were pretty close together though. My friend had recently gotten hit by a car, miraculously only getting about 3 to 6 stitches, when it could have definitely killed her. I had been an eyewitness to it all. It was a cause of her stupidity. I felt very unappreciated, having almost witnessed my best friend's death. And having to deal with the dicky friends I had, I decided to change schools. I ran away from it, and never spoke to them since. Except for one that was always nice to me. I recently got back into contact with him, and told him the story, and I feel it was a good choice, as I made new, better friends, and I feel much happier now. I made this friend at university during our first week, so we were both busy trying to live a fresher life, make lots of friends, etc. Now she was never my favorite person, but she did seem to be a good friend and we did have a lot of fun together. On top of everything, she got into her first relationship with a guy who honestly reminded me of my first relationship. So I decided to make sure and stick by her because I really worried she would cut her friends out without realizing that her boyfriend's influence was a major cause in the lack of her social life. Fast forward to a year later, she flat out ignores me at a party at a mutual friend of ours and ends up messaging me to come over the next day. She proceeds to basically break up with me over me not being reliable enough basically a few times. When we had planned to walk to university together, I either skipped the lecture or went ahead of time without her. No biggie, or so I thought. Then after a bit of pushing from my side to figure out what's going on in her head, she tells me that her boyfriend and his friends have been making remarks about me and my sex life. And even though she tried to defend me, she actually agrees with them and doesn't want to give me a second chance. Took a little while to stop questioning myself and feeling bad about the whole thing, but I completely cut her out of my life, even though she evidently regretted her decision afterwards. Was definitely a good thing in the end. I cut ties with someone who didn't have my best interest at heart, and she certainly didn't deserve my friendship. TLDR. Stuck by friend at uni to make sure she had someone in case her relationship went tits up. She repays me by slut shaming and telling me I'm an awful person. A good friend of mine for many years. I moved away for work, but used to visit him regularly. We'd do what we'd do as high schoolers, play video games, drink, get high and go McDonald's. It was kind nice to relive the good old days, where we didn't have to worry about, feel a bit innocent and carefree. But over time, when I visited, he started going downhill, was smoking a considerable amount of weed, and started doing hard drugs. He met a guy at work who'd he hang out with, and his new friend would bring over these 16-17-year-old girls. My friend was 24. He became obsessed with sex, even started hiring prostitutes, missing work to meet up with these old desperate women he'd chat up on Tinder, Puff, OkCupid, you name it, he'd have a profile. He'd keep me updated on his downhill descent and brag about how he was getting laid so much, and I wasn't. Eventually he informed me that he found himself a girlfriend. I was hoping he'd calm down a bit, which he did, but when I visited, a few weeks later as I'd usually do over the holiday period, he became very jealous. I was somewhat successful, with a nice car and a great job, whereas he worked in a supermarket. This was never an issue until I met his girlfriend. It was kind of obvious in front of our other friends he was doing his utmost to show off and belittle me to impress his girl. The straw was when we went to the store to pick up some beer. He walked away from the car and played a joke by driving away from him and said, "Sorry mate, we are stealing your bird." She found it funny. He didn't. Soon as we stopped he leaned into my window and punched me to mine and everyone's shock. I drove off, left him, disregarding everyone's advice of throwing his shopping into a ditch, dropped his girlfriend and his stuff at his place. Not spoke to him since. TLDR, childhood friend has slow descent into madness. Gets girlfriend, gets jealous, assaults me. Found out my best friend it had since 2nd grade. Senior year of high school apparently thought about me. He had gotten a new girlfriend, so we started hanging out less and less often, which was totally fine with me. One day though I finally met her with him, and she quickly wanted to be friends. One day I was walking around town and ran into her, and we hung out for a little bit. Eventually we were sitting on this bridge, and she starts telling me how I'm nothing like he had described me. When I asked her she seemed like she realized she had faked up, and I had to pry to find out, but apparently he had been telling her that I wouldn't leave him alone, and that we haven't actually been friends for years, and that I was just a big druggie who just wanted to get faked up all the time. I had only ever smoked pot because he got me into it, and all sorts of other lies to make me look like a shit person. He even told her a story about me getting too drunk and cheating my pants and being a drunken fool, but he was actually the one who had done it in real life, and me and our other friend spent the night cleaning it up. Never talked to him again, and he didn't know that I had found out his girlfriend liked to hang out a lot still though, so we met up all the time and I used to subtly rub it in his face in hopes that he might get insecure about it. Pretty sure it worked, because he blocked me one day after I dropped her off and had messed up her hair big time. Then like a week later she broke up with him. The weird part is that I still hang out with his dad from time to time and we grab a drink or I stop over to fix his computer and stuff like that, but haven't said a word to his son in over 6 years. I think I may have posted this somewhere, but I'll try again. This girl and I had known each other since we were 4, 27 now. We were together about everything. Hung out every day, talked about everything, all that BFF bullshit. As we grew older, we slowly drifted apart for a while and a fight ended our friendship for a period. When I heard that her granddad had passed away, a man I'd pretty much seen my entire childhood, I reached out to her and we reconnected. I was there when her son was baptized. I was there when her grandmother died. Depression got the best of me, and I pushed a lot of people away. She was one of them. But she also didn't try to be that big a part of my life. I understood. She had a small kid and education to deal with. You know, adult stuff. So I was sad that we didn't talk much, but at least we kept in touch. When my mom suddenly passed away, she was one of the first people I called. She promised to travel down to where I lived, same town as her own mom, for the funeral. Couple of days later she texts me to say she can't come. Time passes and I don't hear much from her. A quick message at Christmas and all that. When I got a new phone and number, I sent her in a message to let her know. She read it and didn't reply. Oh well. A month later, I receive a text from her. The "Hey girl, how are you sweetie?" kind. I hate those. They make me suspicious. I told her how I was doing and asked about her and her son. That's when she dropped the bomb. He's wonderful. He just became a big brother at that point. I realized that if she couldn't take a minute out of her schedule for 9 months to tell me she was even pregnant, there was no friendship to be had. No big blowout or anything. I was angry and sad and hurt, but thankfully took about half an hour before replying. Told her that I wished her all the happiness in the world, but that our friendship was over. I do miss her sometimes, but we only get a limited amount of true friends in a lifetime and I don't think she was supposed to be mine. I posted this story before. I was in 10th grade drama class when I met the captain. Captain is his real life nickname. We became fast friends over the course of a day. Fast forward a bit, and I had fallen hard for him, but didn't tell him. He would do little things that would insinuate he felt the same way, yet not outright say it. On top of that, I came from a household that preached the guy is supposed to come to you. Side note, if I stuck to that I wouldn't have as many relationships as I did, nor would I be engaged, so I ended up just praying he'd come to his senses. Well, a year passes by and in that time, he has kissed my forehead. Super short at 5'4", and he's 6'4", yet he denies doing it. Either way, it just warmed my heart up to him even more. In May of my 11th grade, Captain started to ride the line of sexual behavior with me. In a lot of ways, he was my first real love, and I was more than willing to do whatever he asked of me. We arranged to meet at the local library near the school during school hours, to meet up and have sex. I did meet him, with many thousands of butterflies in my stomach and many Judd Nelson fist pumps in the air. And we wandered for a bit, dancing around the anticipation of what we wanted to do. In my mind, the previous night's conversation played, and I was wondering how we'd go about it. Well, it didn't happen. Not like we thought anyway. I found myself making out with him, and touching him and him touching me. I will admit, I came pretty hard. So I had gotten to third base with my best friend / love interest. Judd Nelson fist pumps in the air. Could not even do what I felt justice. I kissed him goodbye because he had to work, and I went home giddy as fuck. When he was done working, I broached the subject of what was next. Specifically, I asked what the story was between us. He replied, "There is no story, I'm afraid." I cried for days. I didn't speak to him for a while. After that, we began to fight and argue. Soon it dragged on, and we weren't speaking for months. But as all things go, I ended up making up with him around the summer's end. I had lost my virginity, regrettably, to someone else, and yeah, Captain and I faked for a long while. That ended when I told him I loved him and he said, "Don't say that." What's the story like now? Well, essentially this, a bunch of drama happened between us mixed in with us making up via Setch. As I got older and my views on Setch changed, I began to see it as no big deal, whereas he began to read too much into it. I was in a dead relationship and Captain and I were actively having an affair. It ended after he begged me to leave the dead relationship for him. At this moment, Captain and I only comment on each other's posts on Facebook. We had a falling out over Terraria and he never fully forgave me for not being with him, even though I spent years trying to be with him previously. In junior high, I made friends with a girl at my school, who had a bit of a reputation for being slutty. I only found out when other people would come up to me and let me in on who she was, and I thought that was really shitty towards her, and it really only made me want to be her friend more, because it seemed like everyone else was avoiding her, and she didn't have any other friends because of it. I didn't know if the rumors were true, and didn't particularly care. I thought she was funny, nice, and I really liked hanging out with her. She was just a fun person to be around, and she made my days a lot happier. Then she got a boyfriend and turned into a nutcase. She would constantly beg me to hang out with her and him together so that I could get to know him. But when I did, she'd spend the entire time making snide remarks about how I kept looking at him, how I must like him myself and want him to be my boyfriend. She did this while he was in the room. It was humiliating and uncomfortable, and either I'd have enough of it and leave, at which point she'd soon beg me to come back. Or she'd ask for me to leave so she could be alone with him, at which point she'd soon beg me to come back. When her boyfriend wasn't hanging out with us, she would talk endlessly about how she was paranoid that he was cheating on her. They'd been together for maybe a week when this started, while at the same time actively cheating on him with another guy. Who she did the same "please stay, you like my man, please go, no please come back" thing with me when we were around this one. Eventually, both those relationships ended, and she was back to the same normal person she was before. And then she got back together with one of them and it all started again. And again. Eventually it was the start of the second semester, which meant new classes, and I would no longer be having the class I met her in, and I didn't share any others with her. I used this as an excuse to phase out the friendship and stop talking to her. Years ago I used to hang out with a good friend. I will call him Bobby. Me and Bobby we really best friend all through middle school, 6th to 8th grade. I used to hang out with him because a lot of people made fun of him and used to chase him around and pick on him. He was a nice guy. His family was a little poor, but that never bothered me. We both played Magic the Gathering and hung out a lot after school. One day I brought over all of my Magic cards, used to keep them in a big wooden custom box. We played all day/night, and then I went home the next day late in the afternoon. A few days later I was going through my cards and noticed I was missing a few. Thinking I misplaced them at my house, I didn't think anything of it. One day I came over his house again and we started playing. He went to shower and that's when I saw them. A stack of expensive rare cards that I was looking for. I asked him about them and he denied, but then later admitted to it, as well as selling a lot of my cards to his cousin without me knowing. I stopped talking to him for years. Then one day he put to me on Facebook. We talked a bit, then decided to hang out. Big mistake. He was a mess, druggy, had a kid that he wasn't allowed to see, and his only job was collecting copper. Found out later he was stealing copper from people's homes, etc. Anyways, we were hanging out at my house and he saw my Magic cards on the shelf, so we decided to play. We played a few games and I went to the kitchen to get a couple beers. Came back and saw him stuffing cards into his jacket pocket, cards that are worth hundreds of dollars each. I grabbed him by his collar, made him give the cards, and threw him out of my house. He said sorry, I didn't care. Found out that he went to jail for giving a minor booze and attempting to have sex with her before I hung out at him when he talked to me through Facebook. Never again. I was a sophomore in high school. I was part of a rather large group of friends, about 12 people total. Our freshman year, one of my closest and best friends' older brother committed suicide while on some major drugs and really came out of nowhere to all of us. This was a guy we used to see multiple times each week whenever we would all hang out at their house. Back to sophomore year, our leader in a sense was my best friend, and we had just gotten back from a vacation together. He was getting into some pretty bad shit and none of us were really comfortable with it. He also had some relationship issues with his on and off girlfriend of a few years, a mutual friend in the group. She warned him that if he continued down his path, that he may end up like our friend's brother. Lo and behold, in a fit of rage he told the mom that his girlfriend had told him that she hoped he ended up like him. He called me to support his bullshit lie, and that's where we all cut ties with him. I didn't back him up. We excommunicated him from our group after that and never talked to him again. This was after a 2-year spree of bullying on me that he had started and an entire web of lies he had going. Life is much better without him now. TLD, our friend lied about somebody telling them to commit suicide like a best friend's brother had to the deceased's mom. One of my closest friends, online friend, but we were closer than any of my real life friends. I met this friend from her ex actually. They stayed close friends, but we became close friends too. It was awkward at first, but we started getting to know each other well. At one point we got close, that we both liked each other and whatnot, but she always told me she didn't want to get into a relationship, that she was not capable of love. We just kept talking though, but slowly drifted away. About a year later she basically started to try to get reconnected with me, and things again were going great. We got close again and everything. I had started developing feelings for her, but I tried my best to not let that get in the way of the friendship. But this time though, I felt over that time we were apart something had drastically changed about her. She became really unstable. She drank a lot, even stating to me she goes days drunk, and when she feels she's sobering up she slams back more. I know what had happened. Don't really want to say anything about it, since it's not my place, but the situation hit her so hard. She even tried to commit suicide while talking to me. I remember waiting 4 days by my computer, pretty much sleeping by it to hear that she was okay. I didn't have her phone number, but I was afraid of the worst. When she finally replied back, after she got home, I just remember feeling so relieved. This time I try my best to keep in contact with her. Years go by. She gets a lot better, stops her binge drinking, and starts to try to work on getting better. I start to sink into my own depression dealing with my own problems and such. She starts to show interest in me, and we try working on things. Even make plans to meet. We don't live far from each other, just a city over. She claims how she wants to be in this relationship with me and everything. Then one day before Valentine's everything changes, and she takes all that back. Tells me everything was a mistake and that all we were doing was a huge mistake. She told me she didn't like me anymore and such. We try to stay friends, but it was very hard to. Fast forward a few months more, this is when my depression got its worst, when I hit my low point. My godfather had passed. He was my closest family member. But during this time when talking to her, all she seemed to want to talk about was how she never got a chance to meet him, and herself only. I just couldn't take it. We got into a huge argument. Essay-sized emails sent back and forth. She was one of the only people up to this point of my life I ever felt close to, and yet all that was just unraveled. We stopped talking altogether, and I haven't heard from her ever since. I don't blame her. I was a jerk when my godfather was passing away, but I wish she could have understood what I felt at that very point in my life, which you would have thought she would. In the end I stopped talking to my close friend of 6 years, and it's been 3 years now since we stopped talking. I often wonder how she is, or what she's up to. I introduced 2 friends to each other, and they became boyfriend/girlfriend. I was closer to the female, because we dated for a month, and decided it was better to stay as friends. The boyfriend started getting jealous and violent, and she would come to me for advice. I have repeatedly expressed my opinions to her, and said to call it quits. He should not be treating her so harshly. Sure enough, she texted me to say they broke up, only to get back with the guy couple days later, and the process starts again. It happened countless times. The most recent experience involved the boyfriend coming to me trying to mend our friendship. 2-year hiatus after they had broken up, but his true intentions were to pick any info on his ex-girlfriend on ways to get back together, or if she was seeing another person already, because he knew she would come to me, which she did. Later that same day, he came running to my house at 11 p.m. knocking. Insisted that my dear little sister who had nothing to do with this wake me up from my sleep. He asked, what did she tell you? Do I still have a chance? I told him, I'm not sure and that not much was spoken of you. He tells me things. I love her so much, dude. I don't think I can live without her. Oh my god, dude, I need her. I feel like driving off a cliff to stop the pain. I tell him I'm tired and need to go to sleep and he leaves. I felt that I was submerged into a situation that was not mine to worry about, and I've already tried to show the girlfriend how the relationship was no bueno, but she failed to truly get away from the relationship. So I've stopped communication to both, because I do need to submerge myself in this repeating cycle that is their relationship. TLDR, got two friends together, became a nightmare, and don't talk to them anymore. Two of them. We grew up together in the same church, and because close friends, we were best friends for 10 plus years. In 8th grade this girl that I dated for a week started to like him and left me for him. It was shitty, but they broke up a month or so later, and we became friends again, because we decided that some beach wasn't worth tossing a friendship away for. In high school, 4 years later, he dates a girl, and she starts to like me because her and I were always at parties together, and we got a chance to socialize a lot. She breaks up with him hoping to get with me. I had zero interest. That put another rift in our friendship. Wait a little while, make up, etc. Then we slowly drift apart. Nothing malicious, just got busy with college and work and whatnot. I still consider him a friend. I come out to my car one morning and it's covered in ketchup, mustard, and salami. Luckily I caught it and washed it off in time before the acids ate away my paint. I'm pissed and wonder if it was just a random vandal doing shit. I get a message a week later from someone not in my buddy list telling me it was my former friend because he got drunk one night and still bitter about the girl I stole from him years before. Just pissed out of nowhere. This person told me he drunkenly called them while he was doing it. I figured out it was this girl that I had stolen from him, and she wanted me to know because she had a few unique writing things she'd interject in her typing. The second when he tried to have sex with me at a party after 4 years of completely straight bro-ish friendship. Dave was a friend through friends in HS. I went to another one and lost touch. Until one day I'm out with my original friend and run into him. Numbers exchanged and we start hanging out. He invited several of us over to watch the Super Bowl once and meet his girlfriend one time. Only his girlfriend was nowhere to be found. Also no booze, no drinks, no snacks. Just sitting in his parents' posh Georgetown basement while his girlfriend stayed upstairs like Rapunzel never to be seen. That was, and still remains, the worst party I've ever been to, if you want to call it that. Dave and I got closer. Bonded over music and such. I met his girlfriend, but once and she was a complete sweetheart. We eventually broke up. He was a mess. Losing weight, hitting the gym, and calling me at various times at work to verbally abuse me. Unfortunately I forgive unconditionally, and conditions are a matter of proper amends and self-respect. Anyways, more shit went down. We would part ways and get back together. Shortly after one time I dated a horrible girl and found out about narcissistic personality disorders. I began to do the math and Dave was a prime candidate. His dad was diagnosed as such, and it's called the selfish gene for a reason, because it's passed on from generation to generation, or more accurately, host to host. Long story short, I had it with Dave and told him so one day. I'd been saving it up, only to finally unleash my grievances, and my cell phone dies. At least he heard someone say you're a narcissist. He was taken aback, and just as I was getting started, unleashing years of manipulation and all kinds of shady shit. Click anyways. Just last month, a good, 8+ years after that conversation he reaches out to my sister trying to find me, and a douche bump ran up my spine. Just a narcissist looking for another pushover, a parasite looking for its host. Had this happen with a male friend and a female friend. Male friend, background, I'm working 2-pint jobs. I pay 3 of the 4 monthly bills. I have a car. Former best friend / roommate is a foot college student and lived off his student loan money. Had 2 girls with his ex-wife and no car. We began living together in August 2013. From the beginning he didn't carry his weight, but since we were friends and not in a relationship, I didn't nag him about it. I'd try to talk to him about my issues only for him to dismiss what I'd say repeatedly. I was the only one that cleaned the house. I was the only one that would take out the garbage and recycling. I was the one that took primary care of his 2 dogs. I tailored my schedule so I could pick his daughters up from school on the days he had late class. I made his life much easier than it had been before. July 30th, 2015, I come home after working both my jobs, meaning I'd had about a 10-hour day, while he'd been drinking all afternoon and watching YouTube or playing Xbox. I just want to watch Sherlock and go to bed, but he keeps talking to me, complaining about how I'm not fun anymore. We begin talking about some things and he doesn't agree with me. He becomes belligerent. At some point we begin to argue. He gets physical with me, backs me into a corner, puts one fist in the middle of my chest and holds the other one out, like he's going to hit me. I call the police. They talk to him. They talk to me, and they arrest him for domestic violence and take him away. Mind you, this entire time that the police are talking to him, he telling them, yeah, I put my hands on her, but she's bigger than me. Female friend begins dating the guy that she ends up marrying and just drops all her friends. She just disappeared in 2007. The next time I hear from her is a friend's request on FB. 15 days later I move out and haven't seen him since. I'm better off without him. My brother died. I told her when the funeral was, and she said she would absolutely be there. This happened just before Christmas last year. As the week went on, she would call from time to time, and I kept missing her calls because I was with my family. I would text her back saying I was sorry I missed her call earlier. We would talk for a couple of minutes, and then I'd head back to my family. Well, on Saturday she texts me saying that she feels like I haven't really been there for her recently, and she thinks it has to do with my new girlfriend. I explained to her that my brother just died, and I wasn't really available to talk to people at the time. She said she understands. I think we are cool for now. Monday rolls around, which was the funeral. So many people showed up. It filled the church. Most of them were there to support my mom. A couple of people also realized that I lost a brother, but almost all of them focused on my mom losing her son, which I totally understood, even if it made me feel invisible a bit. I watched that door so intently. She didn't show. As the funeral came to a close and I helped carry the casket outside, I searched the crowd, thinking she showed up late. She didn't. 3 weeks later, she texts me, hey, can we be friends again? I called her and told her no. When I needed someone, like really and truly needed someone, she couldn't be bothered. She didn't apologize for not being around, didn't apologize for not calling or texting that whole time. She kept trying to put the blame on me for the whole situation. I haven't talked to her since then. Me and my friend wanted to see Green Day. Now, we live in Italy and went to Heineken Festival on July 4th, 2010. Hurricane destroyed the place. No Green Day. We went to I-Day Festival on September 2nd, 2012. Billy Joe was recovered in the hospital. No Green Day. So, we really wanted to see Green Day at that point. We buy the tickets to a concert and decided to go queuing from the night before, so stay the night sleeping outside of the building where the concert would take place. Okay, nighttime comes, and though it was summer, it starts raining. A lot. We are talking about curling up in a corner and setting fire to anything that we can find, including deodorant. Level of cold. The next morning, she doesn't feel well and decides to go to a bar to have breakfast while I stand in the queue. My phone was dead. My friend knew it. 1 hour later, and still she hasn't shown up. I go to the bar she went to because I'm feeling dizzy and need sugar. Remember that we spent the night under the rain. My clothes were still soaked in water and I hadn't eaten in almost a day, but I'm feeling pretty okay because I have a strong body or whatever. There I meet a girl we talked to the night before, who tells me my friend has sold the ticket, left, went back to our town. 2 hours away from where we were. She didn't tell me anything. She had the money we were supposed to use to pay the cab because we would sleep at a friend's place. I didn't have a cell phone and had no way to contact any friend I knew was going to be at the concert, nor my family. She had my computer and some of my personal stuff at her home and didn't answer the phone for days after the event. When she finally did, we arranged to meet. I would go to her house to get my belongings. Fine. She slightly opens the door, gives me my things without even looking at me, closes it, and bye bye forever. Keep in mind that before that we had been on and off friends for 3 years, and in the year before the concert we had gotten really close. Glad I'm not her friend anymore. What she did really made me understand that she didn't care about me. She just wanted someone to talk to, so she was not lonely. I had a friend that played a lot of video games with me, but our group mostly played League of Legends. Over the year and a half that she played it with me, I started to see her change. She got more hostile, yelled over nothing, even kicked someone out of our group because of a silly situation, which involved her not getting enough stacks on Devourer, even though she wasn't the jungler. Her and we got into much more fights, which ended up as I coming back to her and asking for forgiveness, when it was just a misunderstanding on her part. Well, I had started to just give up on the game and played other games instead, but she followed me there too, which I didn't mind at the time because she was nice when she played other games. Well, we met this kid and we added him to a Skype call hoping to make new friends. A day after this, he tell us that he was dealing with depression and was going to kill himself, though his stories didn't add up and made us believe that he was just trying to seek attention. But my thought was that my mother always told me to give people the benefit of the doubt and handle the situation like if it was real. Because I had no clue what this kid's real name is, his age, where he lives, blah blah blah. So we were in a joint calls together and he asks to speak to me in private because my friend was kinda getting mad and stuff. So I just told him, don't do it. It's a permanent solution to a temporary problem. There is someone out there that loves you. Stuff like that. I added that if he was lying he should feel ashamed of himself because lying about a serious issue was no good. We got back in call and my friend just starts flaming at me. How could you do that? You're giving him what he wanted. You're the worst person ever. I hate you. You saved this little kid and not me. You were never my friend. At this point I had no clue what she was talking about. She didn't even know what I actually said to him. But she had already blocked me, deleted my contact and various other things. I started to break down. I didn't even know what I did, to be honest. But a couple days after the incident I realized that I didn't need her anymore. I was so worried that the friends I had that connected to her were just going to disappear. And I was a little afraid of her also. It was kinda a relief to have that off my shoulders. Because she was toxic. And I didn't need that in my life. About 4 months later I've made great new friends, and I do still miss all the good times we had together, but I'm glad I got that poison out of my life. TLDR had a friend that was too obsessed with video games, and it changed how she acts. Had a fight, and broke connections with her. Things are going good now. My former best friend was in a horribly abusive relationship. She stayed him though, and I'd always be there for her when she needed a shoulder to cry on. Well, one night she calls me absolutely terrified. Her boyfriend had come home drunk and fired a gun at her head while she and their 3-year-old daughter napped on the couch. The bullet went through the pillow, missing her head by mere inches, her daughter's head by a foot. That was it. She wanted out. She called me, and I told her to get their stuff and come over. Stay as long as you need. I was still living my dad, and we didn't have a guest room, so for a week her daughter, my daughter and myself all slept in my bed. It was crowded and miserable, but no way would I leave her, no place to go. Her boyfriend called her every day, but she never answered until a week later. Of course he apologized. Of course he claimed it would never happen again. He wanted to come over to talk things out her, and she turned and asked me if he could. I said hell no. I don't want that sorry piece of shit anywhere near our property. His response, as a changed man and all, was to tell me he was coming over his gun, and if I dared to even look at him, he'd make me watch as he put a bullet between my dad, my sister and my 2-year-old daughter's eyes, then he'd wrap me before blowing my brains out. What a nice guy. I ran and told my dad what he had said, and he got his gun and we waited. Of course he never showed up. The next day my bestie gathered up all of her and her daughter's belongings and they went back home to him. I was furious that she'd go back to that pathetic excuse of a man, so I never bothered to call her. She called me days later whispering that Danny told her he'd only take her back if she ended her friendship with me, and she agreed to that, but she told me she'd never really do that to me, but we'd have to keep our friendship hidden from him. That was my final straw. I told her no, we were done. That I could not stay friends with someone who's SO threatened to kill my baby, my family. That she was too much of a liability to myself and my family because his temper, who knows what he'd do next time to me or her if he found out we were still friends. I hung up. A month later, the morning after Christmas, 2 social workers show up at my house stating that they received a phone call that I was abusing my daughter, I was on drugs, I only let my daughter ride in the car her daddy when he was drunk, and that I had my daughter at a residence when a fight broke out and a gun was pulled. I had to undress my daughter so they could check for bruising. I was shocked. I was hurt, heartbroken that someone could make these types of heartless accusations. My former bestie and Danny had called. How did I know? Because the only allegation made that was true was about the fight. Danny and my daughter's father got into a fist fight when Danny pulled a gun on him. I didn't call on myself, and my daughter's daddy sure as she didn't call. Who does that leave? I told the social workers all of that plus a hell of a lot more. Whose daughter was damn near shot in the head by her abusive daddy. I told them about everything that man had put those two through. Honestly, a social worker should have been alerted sooner to what was going on with my former bestie and her daughter, but at least they knew now. All the allegations on me were marked unfounded, false due to malicious intent. My former friend's case was marked founded, and they had to appear in court, take parenting classes, drug tests, etc. I haven't spoken to her since. She did finally leave him, and years after that he was high/drunk and thought it would be funny to aim a rifle at his head and pull the trigger. He thought it was unloaded. It wasn't. I was best friends with a girl for 4 years. She was truly my friendship soulmate. We lived together all 4 years of undergrad and would visit each other during the summers away from school. I would go stay at her house. I knew her family closely, and she knew mine. We were so close in school that we pretty much were each other's only friends. Think an interracial Daria and Jane. Anyway, my best friend and I had planned to move in together after we graduated. We were going to move to New York City and just try to make it, like everyone else who blindly moves to a new city. But as soon as we finish school and go to our separate hometowns, the relationship changes dramatically. We went back to school for graduation, but she was being really strange. She didn't want to take any pictures together. This is a person I have over 1,000 pictures with on Facebook, and she doesn't want to talk to me at all. Now this is a girl who I would be in constant contact with. We probably would send at least 2,000 texts to each other a day. At first I chalked it up to the fact that we were both working 2 jobs. I, a full-time job and a part-time serving job, and she, 2 part-time jobs. But since we were planning on moving in together, we had to start making some serious preparations. I start asking her how much she wants to spend, what neighborhood she wants to live in, etc. Like normal questions you would ask someone you're going to be living with. She won't answer, and when she does, she just blows me off with some unrelated comment. After about 2 weeks of trying, I gave up and looked for a place on my own. Finally, at the beginning of September, right before I move, I find out through Facebook that she's in a relationship with some dude who's in the Air Force and stationed in Alaska, and she's moving there with him. Now that's bad enough. I was really hurt. She had clearly been planning to do this for quite some time and never had the courage to just outright tell me, although she had multiple opportunities to do so. And I thought it was just plain stupid. So I move on my own, and she comes to New York City to visit me. She stays with me, and it's like everything is back to normal now that I know she's moving across the country. The first night she was in the city, we go to dinner with her aunt and her cousin that live nearby. During dinner was when I knew I couldn't be friends with her anymore. Her aunt asks her what she's gonna do when this dude is done in Alaska. He had about 8 months left with the Air Force, and he was done. My ex-best friend goes, "Oh, I don't know. I'll probably just go wherever he wants to go." That's when I knew we were done. I have no respect for people who can't think for themselves, and for a girl who is just gonna follow some dude around the country and have no aspirations of her own. No thank you. We'd been friends for almost 2 decades. She was always in multiple open relationships, while I was a bit of a serial monogamist. I always kept my boyfriend separate from her because she was super flirtatious and not even loyal to men she was truly interested in. She had been living with a guy for some time who loved her and befriended his best friend. Confided in me that she was considering sleeping with him just because she felt sexual tension there and was curious, and asked me my opinion on it multiple times for somewhere between 6 months to a year, while suggesting me and the same guy would really hit it off. I always told her she probably could sleep with him, but it would be a bad idea because he was her main lover's best friend. I also made it clear I wasn't interested in being involved with a guy she was interested in doing that with. Several months later, me and the guy do hit it off. I felt she wouldn't respect that I was seeing him and would continue to flirt with him, so I tried to dispel the issue before it had time to come to a head. She's still seeing his BFF and some other guys on the side while this is going on. I tell her no guy matters to me more than her and I, and that if she has feelings for this guy, even if she's not going to act on them, that I will end it here and date someone else because I don't want us competing for a guy. She tells me it's fine for the time being because she should probably be dedicating that time to the BFF who she was still living with, but that she can't promise me anything in the future. I literally felt like she had plunged a knife into my heart. Stopped talking to her about 2 weeks later. Stopped seeing the guy some months later because the whole situation had put insane stress on our relationship. 9 months go by. We start talking again, but she makes it clear she won't apologize for what was said. I try to let it go. Me and the guy reconnect, fall in love. We are very happy. He establishes a respectful boundary between them. She keeps subtly trying to break down and I continue to be hurt by the fact she never apologized for what she said. Finally decided it wasn't worth the disrespect to myself to fake the friendship still being what it had been years prior, and told her I couldn't be friends with her without an apology, and that it felt awful feeling that the only reason any boundaries existed between my boyfriend and my best friend were because my boyfriend upheld them. She denies the whole thing ever happened and has told me to my face I made it up. That helped put the last nails in the coffin too. I still wish she would apologize so I could forgive her, we could fix our friendship and have an awesome time together like we used to. I couldn't maintain a funny friendship with her, which was what it became after she said that to me and wouldn't apologize. Me and a really good friend of mine had gone through a lot. We were even romantically involved at one point, not by the time this happened, but it's worth mentioning. We were really close. I'm an atheist and she's a diehard Christian. I'm not against Christianity, of course, but we still didn't really see eye to eye on a lot of things as a result. So when gay marriage was legalized in America, we are Americans, she texted me, "What has this world come to? What are you talking about? They legalized gay marriage. Oh yeah, I heard about that. Pretty great, right? No, it's awful. My mom is a lesbian and my sister is bi and trans. Not to mention I have several LGBT friends and am involved with an equality club at my school to support LGBT rights." Needless to say, hearing this from such a close friend was like punch in the gut. The nail was really hammered into the coffin when she said, "Ian, you have to understand, these people are choosing to be gay to defy God. They need to stop. I can't be friends with people who would say shit like that. Not only would my family, justifiably, be pissed, I'm pissed. How could she say something so ignorant and just faking stupid?" After that debacle, her sister texted me, using my ex-friend's number, a long text, and I mean so long my phone had to open a separate window to let me read all of it, about his I was wrong and somehow trying to deny that gay marriage was actually legalized, lolwood, so I decided it would be best to just cut contact. So I blocked her number and we haven't spoken since. Her wedding. I would struggle to say we were close friends in the first place, but we had gone to school together and were in the same friendship group. This girl had no friends and was only a part of our friendship group because her partner was our friend. We always made an effort to include her, and I tried to chat to her and include her in things as much as I could, but she was a very boring person who never made an effort to get to know anyone or make an effort for anyone else. The only thing she ever talked about was getting her so to propose. Fast forward a few years, and she has harassed, bullied and fought him into proposing. Her family helped a lot. All of a sudden I'm being told, not asked, that I'm a bridesmaid, and so is one of my friends that she has met twice. Long story short, this girl is batshit crazy, and so is her family. We do everything for her to keep the peace, spend thousands of dollar sign on the lead up to the wedding, organize her engagement, bridal shower and hens because her sister was pregnant only for her and her mum to get drunk on the hens and tell us that we were useless, good for nothing, jealous beaches that should feel privileged to be involved in such a beautiful event that we would apparently never have. Needless to say, after 2 years we'd had enough and pulled out of the bridal party. The wedding went ahead, the bridal party, and she is no longer invited to any social events by our group. Unfortunately for the groom, our friendship group does not often see him anymore as she has pulled in the reins and claimed she is suicidal, depressed etc., so he can't leave her side. The joys of marriage. TLDR, girl who is obsessed with getting married goes Bridezilla, loses not only all of her friends, but forces her husband to lose all his too. Well, I'm late to the party, but I have a story actually. Well, a little backstory. So this girl who I have known for a long time, who I was really close with and had a crush on, but she didn't feel the same way. Well, this was during my senior year prom day, and I got ready for prom, my tux pictures and whatnot, and I was going to meet my date. Not the girl I had a crush on, another girl who happened to be a foreign exchange student, and I decided to ask to prom at her host house, but something had come on, so I was going to drive myself to the school so we can take the bus to prom. I don't know why we do this, but we do. Okay, so now I have time before I go to the school. I decide to go to my crush's house cause we were close and I was nervous about prom. So I get to her house, she invites me in, and her little sister is there, and we all start hanging out talking, and she calms me down about prom. I ask her if we could practice my slow dancing because I wasn't very good. After an hour I have to head out. Before I go to school to get on the buses, I head to the bank. From the bank to school, a thought comes into my head, a bad one. I turn the car around and drive back to her house. Knocked on her door, and once she opened I pulled her in and kissed her. Look at her for a second, then got in my car and went to prom. Well, now you are wondering what happened. Well, she stopped talking to me, ignored me at school, and didn't acknowledge my existence. That's how I lost a friend and crush. OHH, also did I mention she had a boyfriend? Yeah, that might not have been the best decision. TLDR, I went to my crush's house during prom, kissed her, and lost her forever. I bought her flowers on V-Day, drove to her apartment, and left them on her doorstep. No name, but I included the same corsage I got her for prom, hoping she would get the clue. She flipped. I had mad feelings for her, but the way she did it made me feel like a stalker. So I tried to flip the situation by saying I did it as a friend. Maybe that's where I messed up, because I noticed she was being a little friendlier to me than usual, and I basically turned her down several times. But after years of being just friends I had gotten used to the role, so I stopped reading context clues. She basically told me one day we will work out what our relationship is, but today won't be that day. Since then I've seen her around town a few times. We don't speak unless we both make eye contact, and even then it's no more than a casual hey. I still have the handmade card she gave me randomly one day. I offered to pick her up early from class. I see it basically every morning when I open my sock drawer. It may be toxic to keep it, but to this day it was the most thoughtful and sweetest thing anyone has ever given me. She liked me so much that she wrote how she wanted me to be the godfather of her kids someday, but the way it read and the way it was presented made me feel like there was some other meaning there. I honestly don't think that relationship is in the slightest bit salvageable, and not sure if I should even try at this point. I had one best friend from 2nd grade up until we were about 20. I was living in my own and going through a rough breakup, she was there for me, and we started experimenting and recreationally using harder drugs, meth, heroin, smoking pills. I had introduced her inadvertently to a heroin addict who was a runner for my boyfriend at the time. He was relentless in his advances towards her, nothing creepy or uncalled for at the time. She eventually became infatuated and fell in love with him. She was a virgin and fell head over heels for him. Unfortunately for her, I quickly pulled myself out of the funk I was in, cleaned up and moved on. She however did not. Even with her and my family trying to help, she couldn't escape his grips. He was emotionally and physically abusive. He had shot her up and made her overdose several times. When she finally asked me to come pick her up from his house, where she was living, he showed up and tried to fight me, a female, and basically told me he would kill me if I didn't leave his property that was owned by his grandparents. I begged her to follow through and leave with me, but she ended up staying. I cut off ties with he that day. We've spoken briefly a few times since then. I'd love to have her back in my life, but that just doesn't seem likely. I now live in a different country and miss her, and hope she is well and thriving. None of the names here used are real names. Was playing an MMORPG. I had a friend, let's call him Orat. I've never met Orat. He was a close friend, a guy that was always fond of me and cuddly, was leading the event/raid. I was happy to join him, since I wanted a few items. After everyone died twice, I told them that maybe they should wait until everybody is ready before starting the fight. A guy, calling him Raven, started harassing me and belittling me just because I wasn't doing enough damage, pulling enough numbers, etc. In reality it was just because I wasn't ready both times and people kept attacking before I was ready, but Raven didn't let up. A second person joined in, calling them Cat. Funny enough, I was going to hand them an item I had won right before they started abusing me, but I gave it to somebody else instead. The whole time I kept begging Orat, in private chat, to remove both of them from the group. It would have been a small sliver of justice. Orat claimed he didn't want to get into the argument. It's like, no, I'm not asking you to argue on my behalf. Just get these people out of my sight so I don't have to ever see them again. At this point I was in tears and was feeling so depressed that it was hard for me to play the game. Arms felt like lead. At the last boss, I was such a mess that I just sat there and stared at the keyboard. Orat never did remove them from the group. Cat and Raven continued their antics even after the raid was over. I removed Orat, though, from the game, from Facebook, from Skype, everywhere I had him as a friend. Messaged him, you just lost a good friend that would do anything for you. Apparently you weren't willing to return one simple favor. Hope you're proud of yourself. Haven't spoken to him since. Haven't actually felt truly happy since that incident happened. I guess because it's close to heartbreak. I'm one of the very few women that do open motorcycle track days. It's a very small industry, and given the level of testosterone and natural competitiveness, gossip can get ugly. It's the worst among the women. However, I brought in a friend who street rode, but really wanted to track ride. As a former amateur road racer, I encouraged her to try an open track day to better her skills in a safe environment. She was scared shitless, but did it, and slowly got faster. After a long break of not riding due to an illness that nearly killed me, I decided to pick it up again after a long disability. My old friends were thrilled to see me slowly get back up to speed and encouraged me and gave me help I needed in loading my bike, breaking old bad habits, etc. She thus spread a rumor that I falsified a sexual harassment charge to get an instructor fired. He got fired all on his very own. She told me the owner of one track day provider hated me and never wanted me to appear at his track days again, but he'd never admit it because he was too nice. For a year I was treated very rudely by a certain group and had no idea what I had done. So, I simply went to a different track day provider and gave them my money to do track days. The truth finally came out. Her words, I wanted to do anything to have you not show up at the track. I hated that men looked at you, that you were faster than me, a blind person would have been faster than her, and that you are slim. I was not a hog like her, and didn't eat entire large pizzas and a 2-liter Dr. Pepper in one sitting, and took care of myself. So, despite getting this friend into a hobby that turned into a huge passion for her that she loved, helping her prep her bike, she hated my presence at the track that much and was so jealous, we were both in our early 30s, that she went to that level of malice and slander to keep me away from the track. Backstory: friend of mine was a fairly large hamplaner who slept around a lot, did drugs, etc. She had 2 kids from 2 different guys. Forgot why we hung out. Anyways, was dating a guy at the time who turned out to be really weird. I ended up getting accidentally pregnant. Pretty sure he did something to the protection on purpose and was trying to trap me into being stuck. I noped, asked for half the money for an abortion. No way I was ready or willing. He didn't want to, but did it anyways. About a month later, ex comes by my house asking for the money back so he can fly out to visit his ex in Canada. What the fuck? He had a kid with her that he never saw to begin with. Her family moved her away from him. Whatever. Q to a few months later, friend starts telling me about this guy she met in California, talks to him every day, and how he's great and loves her kid. Cool. Happy for you. So I'm at work, standing on a step stool, and my friend comes in with her boyfriend. It's my ex. I turn around, and she has this nasty smirk on her face and starts bragging how they have been talking on MSN chat, and how he only used me to get to her, and he always liked her in high school, 5 years ago. Now keep in mind she was the shoulder I cried on. She had to help me 86 him out of the store we worked at, because he stalked me for a while. She was aware of all of this. He lied to her about all of it, and she knew what a creepy fuck he was. She pulled this stunt all while in the middle of my shift at work. Turns out, he had flown to his ex in Canada, got her knocked up again, her family kicked his ass out again, and he went to live in California mooching off friends until he recontacted my friend, probably looking for me, and she and him hooked up. She got really bagged out, started doing meth, got a job at Walmart. She looked strung out. I ended up confronting her at work. I was blown away. She just responded that he was a real man and could make his own choices. I just told her, yeah, and you made the choice to wreck a friendship over this, and walked out. I wish I had something wittier than that, but I don't. She is still working at Walmart, had another kid I think, and didn't end up staying with my ex longer than a few months.